Chapter 1811. Hee, I'm home. Marie giggled and asked, "Where are you guys?" "I didn't see you guys in the tavern." Molly had been in the Quanjin sect for quite some time. She was very clear about the habits of the people in the Quanjin sect. She knew that if these people were still online at this time, they would be staying in the tavern. "Where's the guild encampment?" Wang Yu asked. "Give me the authority and pull me in." Hearing that the people in Xuanjin were in the encampment, Marie said anxiously. Although Wang Yu had been in Xuanjin for a long time, the time he had spent in the guild encampment was definitely not as long as Marie. Therefore, Marie still had a deep relationship with the guild encampment. Oh, Wang Yu responded, and then threw the authority to Marie. Xuanjin was a democratic guild. Wuji was only the leader in name. Everyone in Xuanjin had the authority to pull people in. Ha. I, Huhan-san, am back. Not long after Wang Yu threw the authority, a wild laugh came from the teleportation point in the guild encampment. Hearing this voice, everyone immediately looked towards the source of the voice. They saw Marie standing in the teleportation point with her hands on her hips, laughing at the sky. Marie was originally a very cheerful girl. She was usually like a tomboy, so it was not strange for her to act like this. However, this girl had suddenly appeared a few months ago. It was still very surprising. "Huh, Marie?" Seeing Marie in the teleportation point, Bao San immediately stood up and hurriedly went to greet her. "Brother San." Seeing Bao San walk over, Marie, who had her hands on her hips, suddenly blushed and lowered her head. "What have you been doing for the past few months?" Bao San walked up to Marie and asked with a frown. Bao San's feelings for Ma Li were complicated. He didn't think much of it before, but after Ma Li left, Bao San always felt empty in his heart. Now that Ma Li suddenly came back, Bao San was surprised. There was even a hint of reproach in his tone, as if he was complaining that the girl had left without saying goodbye. Yo! Bao San's anxious appearance made the people of Xuanjin cast sidelong glances at him. It was as if they could smell a sour stench. Seeing that Bao San was so concerned about her, Molly was secretly happy. She quickly said, "Something happened at home, but it's fine now." Oh, it's good that you're fine." Bao San scratched the back of his head and fell into silence. The reason why this silly dog Bao San was the spare tire was because he was a typical engineering dog and did not know how to communicate with girls. Although his face was anxious, he actually managed to keep Tiana chatting to death. Fortunately, Marie was an outgoing girl, and she knew how stubborn Third Bao was. She took the initiative to find a topic of conversation. "Why are you guys here at the guild encampment today? Look at how down you all are. Is it because I'm back that you're pissed?" No, Bao San said anxiously. "We are worried about Dao Xue's relationship." "Whoa, you're a single dog, and you're worried about someone else." Hearing this, Molly looked at Bao San from head to toe with disdain. This made Bao San blush, and he was speechless for a while. What's going on? Did his girlfriend run away with someone else? At this time, Molly did not forget to expose Bao San's scars. It would be better if she ran away with someone else. Just when Bao San did not know how to answer, Wuji appeared out of nowhere and helped him out with a smile. In this case, Dao Xue doesn't have to worry. Wuji's words confused Molly. Molly said with a smile, "Boss Wuji, we haven't seen each other for so long, but you still like to say things halfway. It's all because of the prestige." Molly was not an outsider. Wuji briefly told her about the famous swordsmanship school. After listening to Wuji's story, Molly understood and said, "I thought it was something stupid. So, it's because of this. What's the big deal? You're so smart that you can't do anything about Mingdu." "There's a way." Wuji spread his hands and said, "Unfortunately, our ability is limited. We can't find a relative with prestige for Dao Xue." "That's easy." Molly snapped her fingers and said, "From now on, Brother Dao Xue will be my cousin." Puffed. Seeing Molly putting on an act, Mingdu could not help but laugh. "Big sister, you didn't understand, did you?" Old Dog Wuji said it very clearly. "We have to find a relative with prestige for Dao Xue." It was not that Mingdu looked down on Molly. In Mingdu's eyes, although the people from Xuanjin were all awesome, in front of Miss Ming, Ordinary people were not worthy of the word prestige. Moreover, Mingdu also heard that Ma Li and the other girls were renting a house at Wang Yu's house. Who would rent a house if they had prestige? Why? Molly curled her lips and said, "Am I not beautiful enough?" This is not a matter of beauty. Mingdu was a little mad. What do you know? At this time, Wuji rolled his eyes at Mingdu. Then he turned to Molly with a smile and said, "Since Miss Ma is willing to help, then I will thank you on behalf of Dao Xue." It's nothing. It's nothing. Molly waved her hand and looked like she did not care at all. Damn. Seeing Wuji like this, Mingdu directly exploded and quickly sent a private message to Wuji. What prestige does she have? Old dog Wuji, you're crazy. Although we are brothers, I will not agree to you snatching my brother's girlfriend. Great. This kid Mingdu thought that Wuji wanted to cheat him in order to snatch Dao Xue's girlfriend. F***CKU. Wuji scolded. Do I look like that kind of person? That's hard to say. Mingdu didn't dare to fully trust Wuji's character against a fella who was used to using his lack of morals to convince others. Eat **T. Wuji sighed and said, "You idiot, this Miss Ma is not an ordinary person. I don't believe you." Mingdu continued to have a face full of disdain. Wuji could not be bothered with this idiot. He turned his face and continued to ask, "Little Ma, you disappeared for so long and suddenly appeared again. It's not just to be Dao Xue's cousin, right?" "Of course not." Molly looked around and said, "I came back this time to discuss business with Boss Wuji." "Oh, what business?" Wuji was not surprised by Ma Li's words. "Haha, then I will say it directly." Molly smiled and said, "Everyone here is a capable person, especially me, Nyogu, who is a rare talent. Don't you want to pursue higher development?" "Pursue higher development?" Wuji heard it and asked knowingly, "I don't quite understand what you mean." "It's very simple." Molly explained, "Someone is interested in our Chuanjin and want to sign us." Chapter 1812. Oh, hearing Ma Li's words, the attention of Chuanjin's members was attracted. Signing a contract or not was one thing. Whether or not anyone took the initiative to look for him was another. When the Quanjin sect first won the professional league, there were still many people looking for the Quanjin sect. But now no one was interested. After all, they were just a grassroots team. Even though they had won the championship for a while, in the eyes of the majority, luck played a large part in their victory. This was especially true after the Monster Rampage signed the Complete Reality Sex group. Naturally, no one dared to provoke the Colossus that was unhindered. As a famous expert, no one tried to poach them. The people of Chuanjin were still very concerned. Moreover, to move unhindered was a purely commercial guild. Their main business was a gaming studio. They had no interest in professional competitions. Therefore, evildoers run wild did not care about Chuanjin's group. To move unhindered, the people of Chuanjin had to pay for materials out of their own pockets. If they did not pay, the people below them would complain. This was something that would never happen in other guilds. A proper guild would always raise a team to provide for them. Unlike Unhindered the World, who only raised the Quanjin sect as their signboard and hired thugs, never doing anything proper. To move unhindered, the people of Chuanjin were very excited when they heard that someone wanted to sign them. Who is it? Who has such foresight? Mingdu had always been straightforward. He did not care about evildoers run wild standing beside him and asked. Molly said calmly, "Me? You?" Not only Mingdu, but the people of Chuanjin were also stunned when they heard Ma Li's words. This little girl must be crazy. Do you know how much it costs to sign a professional team? Baosan could not help but pull Molly. Stop messing around. Money is a small matter. Molly waved her hand and said, "You are all first-rate experts. Nyogu has another contract." Hey, are you done? You're talking like it's the truth, Baosan said awkwardly as he wiped his sweat. Currently, first-rate experts like Team 9 states had an annual salary of at least 30 million RMB. For a powerful person like Wang Yu, it would be at least 100 million RMB. Molly was just a little girl in a gold farming studio. Without Wang Yu's care, she might not even be able to survive in the game. Now, she was talking about a contract worth a few hundred million RMB. Seeing Third Bao's expression, Molly said slowly. Third brother. Everyone, I'm serious. As long as everyone agrees, we can sign the contract in the game right now. With that, Molly pulled out a stack of contracts and handed it to Wuji. There really is a contract? What a good show. Seeing the contract in Wuji's hand, Mingdu and the others quickly gathered around. However, when they saw the company's name at the bottom of the contract, they were all stunned. The name at the bottom of the contract that Molly handed over was Longting Corporation. In the game, in order to facilitate the transfer of professional players, the investment companies of the major teams in the game could apply to the game company to register the company's name in the game. It also had legal effects. Although the name Longting Corporation was tacky, there was only one company that had the capital to invest in a team. It was the largest business conglomerate in the country, Longting Corporation. Longting Corporation started off as an internet software company a few years ago. It had been developing for over 100 years, and its business covered all fields. Online games were only a part of it. Even the game that everyone was playing now, Rebirth, was only a product of a studio under Longting Corporation. In the eyes of the Chuanjin players, Molly was just a gold farming party, the lowest class in the game. At this time, Molly took out a contract from Longting Corporation. This was basically the same as a loser who was always cursing and swearing with them suddenly telling them that he was the richest man in the world. Not only was it unbelievable, but it also made them feel like they were dreaming. Is this fake? Especially Mingdu. When he saw the signature on the contract, he was a little doubtful. He grabbed the contract from Wuji's hand and looked it up and down several times, trying to find some clues. Don't talk nonsense. Wuji said, this is a game. The company's signature needs to be verified and registered. If it's fake, the cost of counterfeiting is too high. Besides, Little Ma has already said her identity. What? Identity? You know her identity? Mingdu was still a little confused. Wuji was speechless. Longting Corporation, surname Ma. Do I need to tell you her identity? Longting Corporation, surname Ma. EUR. After being reminded by Wuji, Mingdu instantly understood. He pointed at Ma Li and did not know what to say. That's right. Wuji nodded and said, Miss Ma is Boss Ma's daughter. Seeing that Wuji was different from the others and was not surprised at all, Wang Yu squinted and asked, Look at you. Already knew? Of course. Wuji smiled and said, I already knew when we were in the professional league. She accidentally let it slip, but I still heard it. F***CK. Why didn't you say so earlier? The people of Chuanjin glared at Wuji. This son of AB**TCH was too despicable. He clearly knew Ma Li's real identity, but he still pretended not to know, making others feel as if they were blind. Hee. Wuji grinned and said, It's so exciting to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Miss Ma might very well be our boss in the future, so of course I can't expose her. Besides, you guys are so full of yourself every day. It's time for you guys to suffer. Huh. Molly blushed when Wuji saw through her. She laughed to cover up her embarrassment and said, Boss Wuji is still so smart. Are we signing this contract or not? If you think the treatment is not good enough, we can talk about it again. Miss Ma. As soon as Molly finished speaking, before Wuji could answer, Evildoers Run Wild beside her was unhappy. He said with a dark face, You're not being kind. It's not like no one in Chuanjin wants them now. Why don't you ask me? Back then, in order to avoid harassment, Chuanjin was signed by Evildoers Run Wild. Just now, Evildoers Run Wild thought that Molly was joking with the people of Chuanjin, so he did not take this little girl seriously, who knew that this little girl was so impressive that she even took out the signature of Longting Company. Naturally, Evildoers Run Wild could not just stand by and watch. Haha, evil boss. Molly was also a clever little girl. Seeing that Evildoers Run Wild was unhappy, she quickly said, To move unhindered, isn't it a waste of talent to tie up all the bosses? Huh. Not to be outdone, Evildoers Run Wild said, As a game developer, doesn't Longting Company know how to avoid arousing suspicion? After all, Evildoers Run Wild was a boss with millions of employees. When he saw things, he got to the point with one sentence. Yes. Hearing evildoers run Wild's words, Wuji also frowned and asked in confusion. Chapter 1813. As the game developer, Longting Group was the one who set the rules of the game. No one knew better than Longting Group, where there were magical weapons and skills in the game. It was unfair to other teams that Longting Group signed a team to participate in the competition. In this case, Longting Group needed to avoid arousing suspicion. You didn't read the contract, did you? Molly pointed at the contract and said, "This is not a competition contract, but an endorsement contract." Endorsement contract? When the evildoer Rampage heard this, he quickly lowered his head and looked at the contract. As expected, the terms of the contract were clearly written on it. At this time, Molly said, "The terms on my contract are only for the endorsement of the game. Other than that, you're not bound." This, listening to Ma Li's explanation, Wang Yu could not help but ask, "This is not appropriate, right? Why do I feel that this contract is a bit?" One could not blame Wang Yu for feeling uneasy. After all, Wang Yu had always been a down-to-earth person. He was very reasonable and paid according to the amount of work he did. The treatment written on the contract was obviously the treatment of a first-line team. A team and an endorsement were two completely different concepts. A team had to invest a lot of energy in training and participate in various major competitions. It seemed that playing games every day was very easy, and they did not even need to collect equipment and materials by themselves. In fact, it was tiring and more exhausting than normal work. The signing company spent tens of millions to sign these professional masters, which was worth the money. However, an endorsement was different. Under normal circumstances, an endorsement was just an advertisement. At most, it was a few poses and a few words. For such a job, even if a first-line star was to endorse, it would only be a few million appearance fees. Wouldn't it be much better to find a few fresh meat to endorse than those guys from Chuanjin? This group of old dogs were either ugly or wretched. Only Wang Yu, who was good-looking, was stupid. What was the King use of spending a few $100 million to get this group of fellows to endorse? Huh. Seeing Wang Yu's expression, Molly smiled and said, "Nyoga. To be honest, a few $100 million to get you to endorse is really not much." "Really? Am I that valuable?" Wang Yu asked in disbelief. He was just a martial artist, not a young model or fresh meat. How could he be so valuable? Of course. Before Molly could explain, Wuji said, "Have you forgotten that someone offered $100 million to sign you when you first started playing the game? You even rejected the offer. You were worth $100 million back then, let alone now." In the end, Wuji was still Wuji. He could see the problem clearly. Back then, Wang Yu had been worth $100 million without revealing himself. Now that he was the core expert of a team that had won the Pro League, a few $100 million was not a lot. "I know," Wang Yu said, "but this is just an endorsement." "Oomph." Wuji snorted. "Do you think the Ma family will make a losing deal? They're certain that you, a stock with great potential, can win the world championship, understand?" "Ha!" Hearing Wuji's words, Molly laughed and said, "Boss Wuji is always so straightforward." Wuji was right. The reason why Longting Group signed Wang Yu was because they knew about Wang Yu's strength. In the game industry, the game's publicity fee was 1/10 of the game's profit. In other words, if Longting Group earned $100 million, the publicity department would have to spend $10 million to advertise. In the past, Longting Group had a very popular mobile game with an annual profit of $30 billion. The publicity fee alone was $3 billion. So much so that Longting Group spent money to find a celebrity to endorse every time they released a game hero. As the most significant game in Longting Group, Rebirth had an annual profit of more than $100 billion. The publicity fee was naturally unimaginable. However, Rebirth was a traditional online game for all. The effect of finding a celebrity to endorse was relatively small. Naturally, it would be better to find some game experts. Molly had been in Chuanjin since she entered the game. She must be very clear about Wang Yu's strength. It was reasonable for her to put her chips on Wang Yu in advance. After all, a few $100 million was insignificant compared to the tens of billions of publicity fee of Longting Group. If they could sign Wang Yu, a master who was likely to win the world championship, as an endorsement, they would still make a profit. If Wang Yu really won the world championship, Longting Group would not be able to take out the few hundred million. Wuji was very shrewd. Of course, Ma Li's little thoughts could not be hidden from him. Ha! Facing Ma Li's embarrassment, Wuji smiled again and said, "We know the strength of the old guys in Chuanjin, but you may know better than me what Old Cow is capable of. Even if Old Cow can't win a world championship because of us, he can at least make it to the top 4. Don't you think it's a little unkind for you to save so much money all of a sudden?" No, 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 Molly said with a smile. This contract is just a signed contract. If you can win the world championship, I guarantee that your bonus will be a digit more than the figure on the contract. Hiss! As soon as Molly said this, the people in Chuanjin could not help but gasp. She was indeed a child of a rich family. She spoke with confidence. Once she spoke, a few hundred million would not be able to stop her. Although Chuanjin did not lack second generations, most of them were not rich. Usually, they did not have a concept of a few hundred million. At most, it was just a matter of a few hundred million. But when a contract of a few hundred million was placed in front of them, the feeling was completely different. This was real gold and silver, a real hard currency, not the game currency in the game. With this money, as long as they did not seek death by engaging in prostitution, gambling, or drugs, they could live comfortably for the rest of their lives. Famous Sword Daoshua had earned a few hundred million at a young age with his personal strength. In front of his future father-in-law, he could be more confident. Even the rich and imposing big boss of evildoers Run Wild could not help but be a little tempted. "Well, do you want to sign me as well?" Evildoers Run Wild said. "In fact, I'm also one of the players of the Motley Crowd team." "Of course," Molly said lightly. "If Boss Evildoer wants to come, I'll give you the same treatment as Nyoga. Little Sister Ma is still the most straightforward." Evildoers Run Wild smiled and said, "Don't worry, these guys in Chuanjin will definitely sign. Even if they don't sign, I'll force them to sign." Indeed, money was the only thing that could not be defeated in the world. In front of RMB, even the strongest big boss had to lower his head. "Then, can someone reimburse our team's equipment and resources?" At this time, Wuji did not forget to take advantage of them. "Of course." Evildoers Run Wild said shamelessly, "If you need any materials, just take them from me. Little Sister Ma will definitely not let me suffer a loss." "Of course." Molly smiled. Chapter 1814. I'm a martial artist of online games. Please take a leave today. Currently typing. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1815. Whether it was in the real world or the online world, for the rich, anything that could be solved with money was basically not a problem. There was still a month before the International Professional League. During this time, Wang Yu and his team put all their energy into equipment. The others were fine. They were either equipped with ordinary equipment or finished equipment. It was more convenient for them to upgrade their equipment. Wang Yu was a bit more troublesome. He was equipped with defective artifacts. After a month, his upgrade was very limited. It couldn't be helped. Wang Yu's weapon and clothes needed artifacts as sacrifices to upgrade. This condition was a bit harsh. As for the broken ring, it was even worse than the clothes and weapons. The conditions for the clothes and weapons were a bit harsh, but at least they knew how to upgrade them. There was no clue about the ring. In desperation, Wang Yu had to use the Phantasmal Spirit Stone to upgrade the equipment on his body. It was just in case. 1 week before the International Professional League, the Chuanjin team finally received an official invitation from the Longting Corporation. This was different from the last time. Last time, the people from the Quanjun sect were completely grassroots. This time, they were the champions of the Professional League. Naturally, the treatment they received was worlds apart. Not only was the Longting Corporation responsible for all the transportation and accommodation, but they also had special reception services. After all, Rebirth was currently the most popular online game in the world. Because of this, Longting Company had also entered the international online game market. In order to fully export their own products, Longting Company, which was rich and overbearing, did not need to spend a lot of money. This S-rank professional league was a world-class league. There were a total of 3 continents and a total of 18 teams from 9 servers participating in this competition. The selected teams were each the 2 strongest teams in their respective servers. In addition to the motley crew of Chuanjin, there was also the runner-up team of the last professional league, 9 States. 9 States was a strong team among strong teams. Since the development of the esports industry, they had won the World Championship 3 times. Each time, they could reach the top 4. They were one of the world's top teams. This was the first time that they participated in the S-rank professional league as the runner-up of the national server. However, the most excited people at this time were not the 2 shortlisted teams, but the players of the national server. Although the esports level of the domestic server had always been at the forefront of the world, although there were many domestic teams, the only team that could really reach the world level was the 9 provinces team. Every time, it was difficult to do it alone. This time, there was a team that was stronger than 9 regions team, so their chances of winning the championship were naturally higher than before. Of course, where there were people, there would be society. Where there were idols, there would be die-hard fans. Before the 2 teams had even set off, the forums of the local server were already in an uproar. It was even more lively than in the game. As a veteran team that had dominated the national server for many years, the 9 regions team had many fans. This time, the 9 regions team was eliminated as the runner-up, so the 9 regions team was bound to be very unconvinced. Everyone knew about the trivial matter of the die-hard fans. The die-hard fans of the 9 regions team had nowhere to vent their resentment, so they directly targeted the champion team, the mob team. What grassroots teams that relied on luck and didn't deserve to be relegated as champions if they didn't have the ability to do so? What rubbish teams with shady conspiracies? In any case, as long as it was dirty water, it would be poured onto Chuanjin. Everyone believed in what they wanted to believe, but wouldn't be willing to believe that their idol was stronger. This kind of feeling was actually not hard to understand. However, if you have resentment, that's your business. You can't pour dirty water on other teams. Although the mob team wasn't famous and didn't have many fans, they represented the vast grassroots. Who didn't have a dream? The mob team was the model of grassroots inspiration. Many players put themselves in their shoes. Now that the mob team was being splashed with dirty water, it felt like they were being splashed with dirty water. This wave of actions by the fans of the 9 regions team directly attracted the attention of the onlookers. For a moment, the forum was flooded with tens of thousands of comments. The diehard fans of both sides and the passers-by fans were locked in a fierce battle. The data of the Rebirth forum almost collapsed. In the game, the people involved in this incident, Chuanjin and his group were drinking and chatting in the tavern as if nothing had happened. Ayaya, I heard that the forum is going to explode this time. Haha. Mingjin Daoxue was vividly describing the battle on the forum. They really have nothing better to do. Wang Yu was speechless. If you have this time, can't you do something serious? Wang Yu had also seen the posts scolding Chuanjin on the forum. Logically speaking, seeing people distort the truth, Wang Yu was still very unhappy. He had won the championship with his own ability. How was it shady? He had been practicing martial arts since he was young. But in the mouth of these keyboard warriors, it became luck. How could he even explain it? Fortunately, Wang Yu's state of mind was relatively high. This matter was over. However, Wang Yu never expected that because of this matter, the players on the forum would cause such a huge commotion. The current online keyboard warriors were really too vicious. There's no smoke without fire. Wuji waved his hand and smiled. Those haters were just used by others. Oh, Wang Yu was puzzled. What do you mean by that? Wuji smirked. Do you think this matter will be blown up just like that? There must be someone behind this. Behind this? What are they after? Wang Yu asked, puzzled. Fame and fortune, Wuji said in a tone as if he had seen through it. To fight for our reputation. We are the champions, so we naturally don't think there's anything to be proud of. The teams that are suppressed by us, a group of grassroots, don't think so. You mean the one who started this matter is 9 States? Wang Yu was surprised. It can't be. I don't think Five Lakes Four Seas is the kind of person who would target us. Of course, he's not targeting us. Wuji explained. In the past, they were the champions every time. This time, they were the runner-up. Of course, this kid has to give his fans an explanation. Just wait and see. It won't be long before 9 States comes out to clarify. Clarify? What does that mean? Wang was confused again. He never thought that there were so many tricks in playing a game. Wuji smiled and said, "First provoke a war, then settle it with a sentence. Both fame and fortune." Although Wang Yu still didn't quite understand Wuji's words, he seemed to understand some of it. "Then what do we do?" Wang Yu asked again. "We just need to watch." Wuji said, "This is also a chance for us to increase our fame." "What's the use of fame?" Wang Yu's face was full of disdain. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version website. Chapter 1816. Sure enough, as Wuji expected, the war of words on the forum lasted for a full 3 days. 3 days later, 538 made a post. The content of the post was similar to what Wuji had expected. The general content was as follows. The Motley Crowd team is definitely a very strong team. Those rumors and slanders are definitely malicious. However, because these rumors and slanders came from the fans of 9 States, 9 States is willing to take responsibility for this matter, and so on. No wonder Wuji said that this kid 538 was a fox. This grandson first boasted about the strength of Chuanjin to draw a clear line between himself and the rumors. Then he took responsibility for this war of words in one fell swoop, giving people an image of a responsible person. Not only did he attack the champion team, the Motley Crowd team gave his fans an explanation and won a good reputation as a national idol. It was killing many birds with one stone. Whether it was their popularity or reputation, they were pushed to the peak. F***CK. Wuji old dog. How does your brain work like this? Seeing 538's clarification post on the forum, the people of Chuanjin naturally admired Wuji's conjecture. Wuji smiled faintly and said, "This is just the beginning." Seeing that 538 had begun to close the net, Wuji touched his chin and said with a smile, "This drama queen has been playing for so long. It's time for us to show up." "Oh, what bad things do you want to do this time?" Seeing Wuji's expression, Wang Yu asked curiously. Those who were familiar with Wuji knew that once this kid revealed this expression, it looked like he was planning to start scheming. "Bad things? You're thinking too much." Wuji smiled and said, "Everyone has been arguing for so long, but we still haven't come to a conclusion. Although 538 is good at winning people's hearts, it still can't convince the masses. I still need to help." After saying that, Wuji went offline. Not long after, under the post from 538 on the main forum, there was another post. The content of the post was very simple, with only a few lines of words. Who is strong and who is weak is not just one person's opinion. We, the Motley Crowd team, never take the initiative to provoke disputes, but we are not weaklings who can be humiliated by others. We, the Motley Crowd team, only care about reality. I am willing to take out 10 million gold coins to bet that this time, our team will definitely achieve better results than the 9 States team. Signed, Chuanjin Sect Leader Wuji. Wow. With Wuji's post, the local server forum, which was about to calm down, was once again thrown into a frenzy. Compared to 5 Lakes and 4 Seas clarification and responsibility, Wuji's post was much more vulgar. However, his words were crude, but his reasoning was not crude. I don't want to clarify things, nor do I want to get close to them. Isn't there someone who doubts the strength of a motley crew? 10 million gold coins was an astronomical figure for all players. Wasn't there someone who doubted the strength of the Motley Crowd team? Explanations are useless. I will use my actions to prove my strength. 10 million gold coins was an astronomical figure for all players. Wuji took out so many gold coins to bet, which could be considered as a direct proof of his determination. He was also determined to achieve a better ranking in the International Professional League. Originally, when everyone saw that the guys from Chuanjin were silent, they thought that their Motley Crowd team had already given up. However, In the end, they made such a move and immediately gained countless fans. What did it mean to be stubborn? This was it. In the face of suspicion and doubt, a grassroots team did not have any superfluous words. Just do it. Such a bold and domineering response. Probably only Chuanjin had this kind of courage in the entire game. Damn, are these guys so vicious? In the office of the Nine States team, the group of people from 538 was waiting for the popularity of the Nine States team to be hyped up. In the end, who knew that this kid, Wuji, would suddenly come out and directly steal the limelight of the Nine States team? Humph! 538 coldly snorted and said, "It's Chuanjin. I'm not surprised by what these guys do." Then we'll let them be arrogant? Their own design had become a wedding dress for others. This group of guys from the Nine States team was naturally not convinced. Of course not. 538 waved his hand and then went to the forum to post. Although our Nine States team is not as rich as the Motley Crowd team, in order to show our determination, our Nine States team is also willing to bet 10 million gold coins on this game. As soon as this post was posted, although 538 didn't pull all the attention over, it also brought the whole incident to a climax. Whether it was the Nine States team or the Motley Crowd team, they were both well-known strong teams in the national server. In the past few days, because the fans of these two teams were fighting with each other, it had already caused an uproar, but that was only a battle of words. But now, these two great teams had directly placed a bet of 10 million gold coins. The spectators naturally felt their blood boil with excitement. This matter was getting more and more interesting. In addition to these people who were watching the show, there was also a lack of people who didn't mind the matter getting bigger. Seeing that the two big teams had shown their sincerity, there were naturally people who couldn't hold back. As a result, the two posts were followed by countless people. Meet in 1,000 Motley Crowd team wins. Meet in 10,000 Nine States team wins. Like this, the posts instantly covered tens of thousands of floors, and the two posts were also manually pinned at the top of the forum. Seeing this scene, Wuji was so happy that snot bubbles came out of his nose. This group of guys from Chuanjin had always prioritized practical benefits, especially this sinister and cunning guy like Wuji. Naturally, he wouldn't take a loss. What was the point of being scolded for so long for no reason? Wasn't it for this result? Opening bets during a competition was a normal operation outside of the game. Every time there was a competition, there would definitely be people placing bets. Even if it was a guild war between two guilds, there would still be people taking the opportunity to gamble. However, gambling was ultimately not a good thing. Other than those gamblers, most people were just playing around. People like Wang Yu, who was a righteous person, didn't even play. Therefore, not to mention that the audience for these underground bets was small, it was usually the gamblers who won, and ordinary people would throw money into it. This time, Wuji simply played it big and acted as the gambler himself. At this moment, the mood of the players in the entire national server had already been stirred up by the two teams, and those gamblers who were opportunistic were of course eager to give it a try. Players all liked to follow the crowd, and with the matter being so big, the number of people placing bets was bound to be much more than usual. Everyone around them was playing, and even those who didn't usually gamble would inevitably gamble a little in order to fit in with the group. Wuji, you're committing a crime, don't you know? Things had developed to this point, and of course, Wang Yu also saw through Wuji's thoughts. Wuji spread his hands indifferently and said, "This is game currency. What kind of crime is it? During the World Cup, there was a time when we played with beans." Speaking up to this point, Wuji said again, "I'm also doing this for everyone's sake. If you don't play this kind of thing, there will definitely be others who play. At least half of us, as the gamblers, will make a profit. If it were anyone else, more than 90% of them will lose everything. Okay? I'm doing a good deed. Don't you understand?" Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. Chapter 1817. With regards to Wuji, Wang Yu was also convinced. To be able to describe a gambling party in such a dignified manner, there was no one else like him. However, what Wuji said was also right. After all, everyone was playing with game currency, and this kind of money would eventually be earned by someone else. There was a saying that 9 out of 10 gambles would be lost. If someone else was the banker, more people would be cheated. Wang Yu's character lay in self-discipline. Wang Yu never interfered with other people's hobbies. Of course, Wang Yu had no right to interfere. Now that everyone's mood had been stirred up, Wang Yu naturally wouldn't be idle and dampen everyone's mood. As long as he didn't get involved, it would be fine. This was the world. You could only hope that others would be kind, but you couldn't force others to be kind. Otherwise, what difference would there be between you and a keyboard warrior? Ayaya, this Wuji still doesn't want to be at a disadvantage. In the office of the Nine States team, when 5 Lakes 4 Seas saw that the direction of the forum had changed from swaying to a large-scale bet, their mood was incomparably complicated. Originally, it was mutually beneficial for everyone to hype up their reputation before the start of the competition. However, Wuji directly took advantage of this situation to become the banker, causing everyone in the Nine States team to collapse. They had spent so much effort to make such a move, but it was actually taken away by someone else. The mood of everyone in the Nine States team could only be described with 4 words: F*** King Dog. It couldn't be helped. This time, 5 Lakes 4 Seas made the first move. It could be said that Wuji was in the right. Now, no matter how Wuji played, the Nine States team could only suffer in silence. There were only 3 days left before the competition. The people in Xuanzhen no longer worked overnight. Seeing that the direction of the forum had been completely changed by Wuji, everyone went offline to rest and recharge. As usual, the day before the competition, the participating teams had to familiarize themselves with the venue. Early the next morning, the 18 people in Xuanzhen rushed to the venue from all over the country. Speaking of the dozen or so people in Xuanzhen, it had to be said that Xuanzhen was definitely a weirdo in the gaming world. If the other teams achieved good results in the Pro League, the guilds under them would definitely recruit and expand. After Xuanzhen won the Pro League championship, they never thought of recruiting players. They used to have 18 players, and they still had 18 players. The only difference was that one rich family's daughter had left, and another rich family's daughter had come. The S-Rank International Pro League was a war-zone competition. As the name suggested, each region would first compete with each other, and only those who passed would be able to enter the next round of the competition. As everyone knew, the world server had a total of 3 major war zones: the Asian server, the American server, and the European server. The hero's continent and the local server naturally belonged to the Asia server. The Asia server had 3 servers: the local server, the Japanese server, and the Korean server. Hence, the first round of the competition was a competition between the 6 teams from the 3 servers in the Asia server. As for the competition venue, it was set to be the Kyoto Stadium in Japan. It wasn't that the organizers worshiped foreign things, but that most Neon players were addicted to single-player games, trams, and other niche games. Rebirth wasn't very popular in Neon. In order to show the charm of Rebirth to the majority of Neon players, the organizers deliberately set the venue in Neon. Of course, before going to Neon, whether it was the players from Xuanzhen or Kyushu, they had to gather in Linhai first before heading to Neon together. Although Longting Group was Xuanzhen's sponsor in the past, Longting Group bought out the publicity contract. Hence, the Motley Crowd sponsor was still the Wong family on the surface. Now that Xuanzhen's Motley Crowd had their own sponsor, they naturally had to be more formal. Other teams had to wear their team uniforms when they went out, and Xuanzhen was no exception. Under the request of Wang Yu and evildoers run wild, coercion, and bribery, the members of Xuanzhen also put on the martial arts supreme suit. As soon as they got off the plane, the members of Xuanzhen attracted countless surprised gazes. Those who knew them knew that they were professional teams, but those who didn't would think that they were performing art. No matter how shameless the members of Xuanzhen were, there was still a limit to them. Being stared at by so many people, Wuji and the others wanted to find a hole to hide in. Even evildoers run wild put on sunglasses and a mask just in case. Only Wang Yu faced the gazes of the crowd with a smug look on his face. It couldn't be helped. Kung Fu had experienced its glory days, but it was later made notorious by a group of liars. In the end, It even disappeared in the long river of history. At this time, being able to attract so much attention as a martial arts grandmaster, Wang Yu was very pleased. What the hell are you doing? After the members of Chuanjin gathered, the members of the Nine States team also met up with the members of Chuanjin at the airport. Seeing Chuanjin's attire, the members of the Nine States team were speechless. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks even sneered in disdain. We are now representing our country. Don't embarrass yourselves when you go out. Even the grassroots won't be as embarrassing as you. That's right. The Nine Skies' godly arrow could not help but echo. You guys either don't wear your team uniforms or dress more properly. Don't dress like this. The members of the Chuanjin team also had a problem with the gaudy uniforms. Although they were ridiculed, they did not know how to refute it. Everyone simply pretended not to hear it and gathered together to chat. However, Wang Yu was not happy about it. What do you guys know? Wang Yu said unhappily. Chinese martial arts have a long history. Once upon a time, it was also our country's quintessence and label. It's only because liars ruined the reputation of Kung Fu that it has become like this. We're not only going overseas to obtain good results. Most importantly, it's to let the people of the world have a new understanding of Chinese Kung Fu. But there's no need to be so gaudy, right? 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks curled his lips and said, dressing like a big sister makes you a martial artist? I think you can only show off your might in the game. Your Kung Fu isn't that great. The moment 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks said that, the members of Chuanjin who were chatting instantly fell silent. Their gazes landed on 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks as if they were looking at a dead person. They were still young and inexperienced. How dare they say such things in front of this master? Upon hearing 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks words, Wang Yu was not angry. Instead, he stared at 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks calmly and said, Are you not convinced? I'm not convinced. Why? Hit me with your Kung Fu. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks was also holding back his anger towards Chuanjin. As a top team, they had lost to a motley crew like Chuanjin the last time. 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks already had a grudge against them. This time, they were made a fool of by Wuji, so they naturally held a deep grudge against Chuanjin. When this punk came, he had been holding back his evil thoughts to teach Chuanjin a lesson. Chapter 1818. Watch your words. Wang Yu squinted his eyes at 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks and said, I'm not familiar with you. You can insult me, but don't insult my martial arts. Why? Are you going to hit me? 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks danced and made an exaggerated expression as he said, I'm so scared. Oomph. You're the one who said it. This was the first time Wang Yu had heard such an unreasonable request in his life. Before 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks could finish speaking, Wang Yu let out a cold snort and lifted his leg. Bang! 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks didn't know what was going on and was directly lying on the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone from the 9 Provinces team was shocked. They stood up together, pointed at Wang Yu, and said, What are you trying to do? Did I do anything? Wang Yu spread his hands and turned to ask the Chuanjin people, What did you guys see? Nothing. Everyone from Chuanjin shook their heads. At this moment, 5 Lakes 4 Seas stood up, walked up to Wang Yu, and said softly, Then do you know that the 2 of you will be banned for fighting before the competition? Hearing 5 Lakes 4 Seas words, Wang Yu couldn't help but be stunned. He suddenly seemed to have understood something. Logically speaking, Wang Yu was just a noob in the game. He had learned the things he did in the game on the spot, so he was naturally clueless about the rules of the professional league. As for being banned from the competition, this was the first time he had heard of it. Wang Yu knew that 5 Lakes 4 Seas was a smart person. With his intelligence, he should have stood up to stop 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks from the start when they provoked him. Now that he said this, after Wang Yu had beaten him up, it was obvious that this matter was instructed by 5 Lakes 4 Seas. This was because he knew that Wang Yu was Chuanjin's core expert. With Wang Yu, Chuanjin would be a super first-rate team. Without Wang Yu, Chuanjin would at most be a second-rate team. Although 3 Mountains, 5 Peaks was also one of the experts in the 9 States team, the difference in skill level between the players in the 9 States team was not large. With him, there would be no difference, but without him, there would be no difference. Using an ace like 3 mountains, 5 peaks to exchange for a king card like Wang Yu is obviously a deal that would only be profitable. Boss 5 lakes, you sure are sinister. Wang Yu muttered to himself for a moment before speaking. You flatter me. 5 lakes 4 seas said with a smile. Compared to Boss Wuji, I'm nothing. Did you just say that anyone who fights before a match will be banned? Wang Yu narrowed his eyes and asked again. Of course. 5 lakes 4 seas said proudly. But these are the rules of the competition, not mine. All right. Wang Yu smiled faintly and raised his hand towards the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Although 5 lakes 4 seas was smart, he was still an ordinary person. When an ordinary person was scared like this, they would, of course, subconsciously block. Without thinking, 5 lakes 4 seas stretched out his hand and hit Wang Yu's hand. Wang Yu took 2 steps back and said with a face full of pity, I was just scratching my ear. Why did Boss 5 lakes hit me? You. Hearing Wang Yu's words, 5 lakes 4 seas' eyes widened. What about you? Before Wang Yu could say anything, evildoers run wild directly pulled down his mask and sneered. Trying to blackmail me? Do you believe that I won't break your arms and legs? If you want to scram, let's scram together. Let's see who's afraid of who. As he said that, evildoers run wild clenched his fists and made a caw-caw sound. In the end, Wang Yu was a bit tactful. When evildoers run wild made his move, the 9 States team was so scared that they hurriedly took a few steps back. Well, they had met a ruthless person. This group of gaming experts were a group of otakus. Their physical fitness couldn't be compared to the Wang Yu brothers, who practiced martial arts all year round. Moreover, evildoers run wild was a big fatty in real life. He had big arms and a round waist, fists as big as a bucket, and a fierce-looking face that looked very hard to deal with. Everyone didn't think that this kid was just joking. If they really forced evildoers run wild into a corner, at most, he would just have to pay some money and be banned from the competition. Everyone knew what kind of person evildoers run wild was. Of course, he didn't lack that bit of money, and he didn't lack that bit of reputation. However, if their hands and feet were really broken, the gaming career of this group of guys from 9 States team would probably come to an end. In the end, they would even end up with 4 limbs crippled. 5 lakes 4 seas just wanted to replace Chuanjin's trump card. Who knew that evildoers run wild would be so rude and unreasonable that he actually wanted to take away 9 States team. At this time, if 5 lakes 4 seas still said something like banning them from the competition, it would be insensible. Seeing that the situation couldn't be resolved, 5 lakes 4 seas laughed and eased the awkwardness. Boss Iron Ox and Boss Evildoer are as humorous as always. I was just reminding you guys. Do you think I can really report you guys? We are all China people. We can't fight among ourselves. You flatter me. Wang Yu smiled and said, I was just joking. That's good, that's good. 5 lakes 4 seas wiped the sweat on his forehead and then kicked 3 mountains 5 seas and scolded. Quickly go back and sit down. You disgraceful thing. 3 mountains 5 seas had no choice but to follow 5 lakes 4 seas back to the team gloomily. Hee. Seeing that 5 lakes 4 seas had suffered another setback, Wuji, who was beside evildoers run wild, smiled and said, What do you think? I told you that he doesn't have the guts to play rough with you, right? Evildoers run wild laughed and said, You're the one who sees things clearly. This group of bastards is really not good. With this incident, Wang Yu had learned his lesson. In this society, violence really didn't work anymore. If he wasn't careful, he might even be tricked by others. Looking at the time, the flight was about to arrive. Wang Yu no longer paid attention to 9 States team. Instead, he turned his head and asked, Is everyone here? Miss Meng doesn't seem to be here yet, Yang Na said after thinking for a while. Although Meng, she was a member of Chuanjin, she had always been a loner. Her presence in Chuanjin was extremely low. Only Yang Na remembered her. She's already here. At this moment, Mingjian Daoshu said with some embarrassment, I showed her our team uniform, and then she went ahead by herself. It can't be, Mingdu said in a dilemma. Isn't she in the European server? She's much further away than us. How did she arrive before we even left? She has a private jet, Mingjian Daoshu said. Everyone was speechless when they heard that. It was good to be rich. Not only was it convenient, but they also didn't have to follow Wang Yu and embarrass themselves. After a day of trouble, Chu Anjin's group and 9 states team finally arrived at the capital of Japan. The organizer's reception was already waiting at the airport. Seeing the attire of Wang Yu's group, the reception was also slightly stunned. However, he was a professional receptionist after all, so he didn't reveal too much of a strange expression. Instead, he led the 2 teams straight to the hotel. After another round of trouble, the 2 teams finally stayed in their rooms. After a night's rest, they had to familiarize themselves with the arena the next day. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website, M. Chapter 1819. Due to the unified arrangement, the participating teams were all staying in the same hotel. Kyoto Stadium was very close to the hotel where the major teams were staying. The next morning, the Quanjin team arrived at the competition venue early. Wang Yu and his team were dressed very differently. As soon as they entered the venue, they attracted the attention of everyone around them. Team 9 states and the others quickly stood far away when they saw this, afraid that others would know that they were acquainted with this group of flashy guys. For professional players, the main thing they needed to familiarize themselves with was the gaming equipment in the arena. Of course, although the stadium was quite large, it was used for spectators to watch the competition. There were only 2 arena rooms, and each room had 10 of the most luxurious gaming pods. There were a total of 6 teams participating in this competition. Naturally, everyone had to queue up to enter and use them separately. Just as the members of Quanjun were sitting in the changing room next to the competition room and waiting, a group of fellows dressed in black suddenly rushed in violently. As they walked in, they shouted in an extremely uncouth manner, causing the other teams to squeeze into the seats at the back. The first 2 rows of seats were empty. Who are they? Why are they so arrogant? The guys from Quanjun were not easy to deal with. They were naturally extremely displeased that they were pushed to the back for no reason. If not for the fear of being banned, based on the temper of the guys from Quanjun, they would probably have made a move. They're from Korea. Wang Yu glanced at the men in black and said with certainty, "Oh." Bao-san was surprised. "Old cow knows Korean?" "I looked at their height," Wang Yu replied. Bao-san was slightly taken aback when he heard that. In the eyes of ordinary people, there was not much difference between the Korean language and the Japanese language, but the images of the 2 countries were still very easy to distinguish. The Neon people were short and stout. Regardless of their character, they were more humble than the people from South Korea and Huaxia. However, this group of men in black were tall and strong, and they looked arrogant. It was obvious that they were from South Korea. What are they saying? Mingdu came up and asked Bao-san curiously. Bao-san was proficient in 8 languages, and his hometown was at the border of Korea and China. Korean could be considered his mother tongue. They asked us to sit at the back. "It seems like their boss or something is coming," Bao-san translated. "Boss? This is the competition room. Can sponsors also enter?" Mingdu was dumbfounded. Just as Mingdu was at a loss, the locker room door opened again, and then a group of young people surrounded by many reporters walked in. This group of young people had colorful hair, and they looked quite handsome. They were wearing black team uniforms with the 3 huge letters BTR printed on them. Under the protection of the group of black-clothed men, this group of young people naturally sat in the front row. This is too exaggerated. Seeing these young people, Wang Yu couldn't help but exclaim, "It's just a competition. You need to hire so many bodyguards?" When Bao-san, who was next to Wang Yu, saw this group of young people, his eyelids suddenly twitched, and he cried out involuntarily, "BTR team!" Wuji and the others were also stunned when they saw this, and their eyes fell on Bao-san. "Who is this?" The blank expression on Wang Yu's face was as heart-wrenching as ever. "You don't even know BTR?" Bao-san said excitedly. "That's the most popular team in Korea, and it's Foreskin-san's idol." Chun Seong curled his lips in disdain and said, "How old are you?" "Still chasing stars like a child. It's really vulgar. I didn't expect to meet them here." Bao San clenched his fist excitedly and said, "Wait for me for a while. I'll go to the front to get an autograph." As he spoke, Bao San stood up and ran to the front row. As a result, he was blocked by the black-clothed men next to BTR team as soon as he reached the front row. After arguing with the group of big men for a while, Bao San lowered his head and rolled back dejectedly. "What's going on? Why are you back?" Wang Yu asked, puzzled. "You've been snubbed after showing your warm face," Chun Xiang added sarcastically. "Damn it," Bao San cursed gloomily. "They said that there are no seats in front and won't let me go over." "It can't be." Wang Yu glanced at the front row and said, "Isn't there a lot of empty seats in front?" "They said that's the assistant's seat." It would have been better if Wang Yu hadn't said that. As soon as he said that, Bao San's face darkened. Uff. The Chuanjin hounds who were watching from the side burst out laughing. Poor Bao San, this honest guy, went up with a face full of enthusiasm and actually got treated like this. This was no longer snubbed after showing his warm face, but he had a face full of mush. Even the members of the 9 States battle team could not help but laugh when they heard Bao San's words. Wu Ji scolded in exasperation. "What did I say? Face is not given by others. It's you who took the initiative to throw it away." "It's okay." Wang Yu comforted him. "We'll help you educate them during tomorrow's game." Ha! As soon as Wang Yu's voice fell, 9 States battle team's 3 mountains laughed mockingly and said, "Earth Dog, do you think they're the same as those domestic trash? Educate others? Be careful not to be educated by others." The guys in Chuanjin were each more arrogant than the other, especially Bao San. At first, even Wang Yu was not convinced. For this BTR team to be able to make Bao San his idol, it could be seen that as a veteran first-class team in the world, their strength was still quite strong. One had to know that although South Korea was small, it was definitely not weak in the esports industry. BTR team had also made it to the top for several times and was one of the most powerful players in the competition for the championship. They had even been above the national server in the past, once stirring up the feelings of the domestic players. As far as the level of operation was concerned, even a team as strong as 9 States battle team did not dare to underestimate them. Of course, the people in 9 States battle team could clearly see the level of Wang Yu's group. In the eyes of experts at their level, only Wang Yu and evildoers Run Wild were more difficult to deal with. Even an expert like Yang Na was considered an opponent in front of the top professional players. As for the rest of Chuanjin, in the eyes of the top experts, they were just guys who crawled out of the amateur team. Compared to the professional players present, they were on a completely different level. This kind of wild fox had no right to challenge them at all. Esports was never a one-man game. Although 9 States battle team lost to Chuanjin in the last domestic professional league, the 9 States battle team agreed that they lost in the end because of strategy and luck, not because they were weak. This time, Chuanjin might not have the same luck as the last time. A mere 2 experts wanted to take off with a team of trash and even vowed to teach a world-class team of top players a lesson. Was this not nonsense? Chapter 1820. It's none of your business. Wu Ji knew that Wang Yu did not have a good impression of 3 mountains, 5 peaks, and was afraid that Wang Yu would fly into a rage here. Seeing that 3 mountains, 5 peaks had come to look for trouble and mock Wang Yu again, Wu Ji raised his eyebrows and retorted on behalf of Wang Yu. "I'm just reminding you. 3 mountains, 5 peaks," said in an irritating tone. "You guys talk big. If you lose, it won't just be you guys who will lose face. Just mind your own business," Wu Ji said calmly. "A bunch of losers dare to act cool." When it came to fighting, Wang Yu had no opponent. When it came to scolding people, Wu Ji was still better at it. With a single sentence, he went straight for 3 mountains Wu Yue's weak point, instantly causing 3 mountains Wu Yue's face to turn red. All right. 5 lakes and 4 seas hurriedly tugged at 3 mountains, 5 peaks close and said, "Why are you arguing with him? Are you his opponent?" After adapting to the venue in the morning and having a meal, the Chuanjin group returned to the hotel. Capital was not Linhai City. They were unfamiliar with the place, and the language was not even the same. Elites like Bao San, Wu Ji, and Chu and Xiang were naturally not afraid. However, the others would find it hard to move around without someone to bring them along. It was safer to stay in the hotel. In the room of the 9 Provinces team next door, 5 Lakes and 4 Seas was holding a small blackboard and pointer to analyze tactics for his teammates. Putting aside the fact that they were professional experts, every word and action of theirs showed their professionalism. Tactical analysis was practically a compulsory course for them, unlike the group of bastards from Xuanzhen. All of them were swaying left and right. They were either hugging their wives and showing off their affection or staying in the room to eat. The 2 scumbags, Mingdu to place one's pride, were now pestering Bao, San to bring them out to broaden their horizons. After all, in the past, they had only seen Japanese girls on their computer hard drives. Now that they finally had the chance to come to Japan, they naturally had to see them for real. Everyone has already met the 6 teams in this competition. 5 Lakes 4 Seas held his pointer and pointed to the 6 teams on the blackboard. Neon is relatively weak in terms of esports. These 2 teams are also the best of the best, so there's nothing to be afraid of. However, the strength of the Korea team participating this time cannot be underestimated. Speaking up to this point, 5 Lakes 4 Seas pointed at BTR and said, "This BTR team is also considered to be our strong opponent. We should be on our guard when we meet them. Now let's focus on analyzing BTR's tactics." What about Xuanzhen? At this moment, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks raised his hand and asked, "Aren't we going to study our strategy against Xuanzhen?" They don't need to study it. 5 Lakes 4 Seas took a look at the picture of the Xuanzhen people on the blackboard and said, "I know Wuji quite well. This person is very adaptable and has never been restricted by battle tactics. This group of people doesn't have any set battle tactics to speak of. Studying them will only lead us astray." Speaking up to this point, 5 Lakes 4 Seas continued, "Moreover, there are 3 places to advance in this competition. Every server's team must have a chance to advance. Therefore, we and Xuanzhen are from the same server, so we won't meet each other." What a pity. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks said regretfully, "I wanted to end them here with my own hands." The previous professional league had always been a knot in 3 Mountains 5 Peaks' heart. A group of top-notch experts lost to a group of amateurs. It would not be easy for anyone to get over it. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks was a narrow-minded guy. Of course, he wanted to avenge his humiliation. Moreover, Xuanzhen had already placed a heavy bet on the forum. If they could kill Xuanzhen in the group stage, wouldn't it be a perfect kill? With the big battle around the corner, 5 Lakes 4 Seas also knew the importance of morale. Of course, he would not destroy 3 Mountains 5 Peaks' dream. Facing 3 Mountains 5 Peaks, who had forgotten the pain after the scar had healed, 5 Lakes 4 Seas could only say helplessly, "Don't be anxious. There will be a chance." Every idol team had their own idol team, but professional teams were all the same. While the 9 States team was analyzing the battlefield, the similarly professional BTR team was not idle either. The white-haired young man in the BTR team was their team leader. His game ID was Agua. He was also the top expert in the BTR team. At this moment, Agua was like 5 Lakes 4 Seas. He was pointing at the major teams on the table and analyzing. The Japanese team is not worth mentioning. The Arilang team is not on the same level as us. Our main opponents now are the 2 teams from China. As he spoke, Agua placed his hand on the name of the 9 States team and said solemnly, "The 9 States team is our old opponent. They are very strong and will definitely be our biggest obstacle this time. However, does anyone know the background of the other team?" I'm not sure. Everyone in the BTR team was clueless about Agua's question. This group of people from Xuanzhen was naturally a household name in the national server. However, they were just a grassroots team after all. It was also their first time participating in a high-level competition like the International Professional League. The other teams in the national server had more or less participated in the International Professional League. They were not considered new in the international arena. However, this group of people from Xuanzhen, be it the name of the team or the players in the team, was the first time many professional players from the top teams had seen them. But looking at their dressing is quite interesting. At this moment, a pink-haired young man beside Agua said, It should be the same as the Chinese team we met before. They are all here to be cheerleaders for 9 states team. Is that so? Agua rubbed his chin and smiled. I think you guessed it right. Looking at their dressing, they should be professional cheerleaders. Having said that, Agua raised his hand above his head and made a lion dance. Ha! After Agua finished speaking, there was a burst of laughter in the room. I really didn't expect this. In Wang Yu's room, Wang Yu and his wife were filled with endless emotions. Everything in life was unpredictable. This time last year, the young couple was still busy running around for a full meal. In just a year's time, Wang Yu had become a household name in the game. He even represented the country to participate in the International Professional League. All of this was like a dream. I just wanted you to play games to relax, Mu Zixian said truthfully. I didn't expect you to relax in an international competition. Ha! Wang Yu laughed. I didn't know either. My original goal was to help you with the hard work of earning money. Who knew I would become a professional gamer? Sigh. Are you disappointed? Seeing Wang Yu sighing, Mu Zixian was a little puzzled. To be able to participate in this competition was the dream of many players. Xuanjin finally had this opportunity, but why was Wang Yu sighing? No, I'm just lamenting. Wang Yu said, Kung Fu is such an ancient thing. To be able to shine in a new thing like games, I really don't know if I should be happy or sad. Of course I should be happy. Mu Zixian comforted him. To be able to shine in the game proves the importance of Kung Fu. Soon, people will take you seriously again. Let's hope so. Wang Yu looked at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window and murmured, I just hope that Kung Fu, which is hard to revive, will not be destroyed by swindlers. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. Chapter 1821. All things had their ups and downs. The reason why Kung Fu had declined to the point where no one cared about it was because it was too mythologized. As the number of people who believed in myths increased, so did the number of liars. After the myth was exposed, it eventually became a joke. The next day, the S-Level World Professional League finally kicked off. The people from Xuanjin and the other 5 teams entered the venue one after another under the reception of the organizer. At this time, the venue is already crowded with people. The S-Level competition was the highest competition in the online gaming circle. As an unprecedentedly popular world-class online game, it naturally had many fans. Although most Neon players did not like online games, there were many people from other countries, especially Huaxia and South Korea. These diehard fans of the game were not short of money. At this moment, the stadium with more than 100,000 people was full. Even the arena in the game was full of players at this time. Loanting Company took the opportunity to earn a lot of tickets. Rich capitalists could make money no matter what they did. After entering the venue, everyone began the introduction of the teams. A high-end competition like the S-Level was naturally different from the domestic professional league. The major teams in the domestic professional league were familiar faces, and the players were familiar with them. Therefore, the host and the commentator were not professionals. In the S-Level professional league, the major teams came from different countries, and the level of the competition was much higher. Therefore, the host and the commentator were also popular professional streamers. The host standing on the stage in a pink skirt was called February Red. She was currently the most famous streamer in the gaming world. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also a gaming expert. She had a lot of fans in Rebirth. Below the stage, there were 2 male commentators. One was called Thunderclap, while the other was called Frost. They were both retired first-rate pro players. They were fierce people who had once stood in this stadium and fought. Their fame was not inferior to the various pro teams. Wow, this is indeed the highest competition. Looking at February Red on the stage and Thunderclap and Windfrost in the audience, the sloppy guys from Xuanjin could not help but stand up straight. Their expressions changed from normal to solemn. Under the introduction of the host, the major teams went on the stage in order to familiarize themselves with each other. There was no need to introduce the 2 teams in Huaxia. Other than BTR, the other team in Korea was called Ararang. The name sounded very rustic, and it was more like a band than a professional team. This team was also a veteran team in Korea, but it was their first time participating in an S-rank international professional league. The two teams from Neon were called Nitin Ichiryu and Sorrow of the Warring States. They had a strong Chinibyu style, which was very much in line with the Neon people's taste. As the host, the two Neon teams had to go on stage first. As veteran professional teams, the Kyushu team and the two teams from Korea were ranked in the world. Naturally, they were ranked behind the Japanese team. Because the ragtag team was an amateur team, they had no influence and were not the host team, so they were placed last. As a result, when Wang Yu and the others wore the uniforms of the martial arts supremes and carried Nyoshir-san's team flag on the stage, they immediately caused an uproar. The Chinese audience was still fine. They had some understanding of Chuanjin style, so they weren't too surprised at this time. However, when the audience from other countries saw this, they couldn't hold it in anymore. Holy shit, who were these people? Did they come to the wrong place? Why didn't the security kick them out? Things like team uniforms represented the face of a team. They were all designed by professionals. Not only were they exquisite, but they were also fashionable and handsome. They were very in line with the current aesthetic of the public in the game and could be sold around the team. In comparison, the ragtag team's bright red and purple and gaudy team uniforms were a little old-fashioned. Coupled with the ragtag team's flashy atmosphere, the entire team's style was very strange. It was no wonder that the audience would have such a reaction when they saw it. Of course, there was no lack of knowledgeable people in the audience. They said with certainty, maybe they're cheerleaders. I saw them in Chinatown during the Spring Festival. Their dances are very handsome. Is that so? Our NBA games always find a few beautiful girls with long breasts and long legs to dance in hot pants. The aesthetic of the Easterners is really strange. Who said it wasn't? Everyone in the audience was discussing it. The Chinese audience covered their faces and couldn't bear to look at it, afraid that the camera would give them a close-up. After all, apart from the hundreds of thousands of people in the stadium, there were over 100 million players watching the live broadcast. They couldn't afford to lose face. Li Shui and the others in the audience were relieved. Fortunately, they were just logistics and not part of the team. Otherwise, they would have to go up and embarrass themselves. Even a professional host like February Hong could not help but cover her mouth when she saw Wang Yu and his group's exaggerated appearance, afraid that she would laugh out loud. Below the stage, Shocking Thunder and Wind Frost were sweating profusely as they grabbed the information in their hands and looked at each other. This is a F*King professional team? This is really a F*King professional team. The two of them sounded like they were doubting life. After careful confirmation, Shocking Thunder wiped his sweat and introduced with a face full of black lines. Ragtag Team, one of the two major teams in China. Although they are amateur, they have achieved good results in the professional league. Puffed. Ha ha ha. Hearing Shocking Thunder's introduction, the audience was in an uproar again. These guys are actually contestants? Are they really that wild? Haven't you heard that they are amateurs? This image is quite fitting for their identity. Is there no one else in China? Hearing the information of Ragtag Team, Agua of Team BTR could not help but raise his eyebrows. They can even make it to the group stage? The other teams also cast a strange look at Chuanjin. Regardless of everyone's ranking in the world, everyone who was able to stand here was a true professional player. Even the two teams from Neon had been carefully selected. However, when they heard that the team on stage was an amateur team, everyone felt a sense of superiority. March Wind, the captain of Team Arilang, glanced at Wang Yu and the others on the stage and sneered with his arms crossed. Two Neon teams and one amateur team. It seems that we don't need to compete to know who the three qualified teams are. As he spoke, March Wind glanced left and right at Team 9 States and Team BTR. After the introduction of the participating teams, the 6 teams entered the venue one after another and went to their seats. After the host said a bunch of nonsense, thanking everyone on the podium, the S1 World Professional League of Rebirth officially began. According to the usual practice, the next segment was to decide the teams on the stage. Chapter 1822. For the sake of fairness, the Pro League adopted a lottery system. 6 number tags were placed in a box, and the captains of the 6 teams went up to the stage to draw their number tags. Those with the same number tag would be their opponents. Soon, all the captains of the 6 teams went up to the stage, and the number tags were announced. Number 2. The captain of Anita first-rate team, who was the first to draw a number, showed his number. The captain of the BTR team, Agua, smiled and took out the same number. The host, February Red, announced that the second match would be between the Nita first-rate team and the BTR team. Then, the captains of the Five Lakes Four Seas team and the Sorrow of the Warring States team showed their number 3 tags at the same time, and the battle between the 2 teams was arranged to be the third match. Other than that, the remaining 2 teams were the Motley Crowd team and the Arialang team. These 2 teams were naturally the first match of the competition. Hee. Marchwind chuckled and raised his eyebrows at Wang Yu. His eyes were full of joy. The 2 neon teams in this group competition were considered a welfare game. Marchwind was originally prepared to fight against Kyushu team, but who knew that he would draw the Motley Crowd team. These were amateur players. If the 2 neon teams were welfare games, the Motley Crowd team would be sent to the police station. Marchwind was so lucky in the opening match, so he was naturally in a good mood. After the order of the competition was confirmed, the rules of the competition were announced. Just like the previous Pro League, the format of this Pro League was also 3 matches. The first match was a solo match. The second match was a tag match. The third match was a group match. There were a total of 5 matches in the solo match, and each match lasted 30 minutes. 1 point would be awarded for each kill. If one side gave up, the other side would be awarded 1 point. If no target was killed within the specified time, both sides would be awarded 0 points. Each match lasted 30 minutes, and both sides would randomly send 5 players into the battlefield to fight until the player died. The basic scoring rules were similar to the solo match. The only difference was that if all 5 players of one side were killed, the surviving player of the other side would also be awarded 1 point. There was only 1 match in the group match, and the time was 1 hour. Both sides would send 10 players into the battlefield, and the team that was wiped out would win. If all opponents were not killed within the specified time, the winner would be determined according to the number of casualties. If the number of casualties was the same, it would be a draw. In the team competition, every player killed would be awarded 1 point. The winner would be awarded an additional 10 points. If it was a draw, there would be no additional rewards. After reading the rules of the competition, the host added, "Due to the behavior of assassins in previous competitions, the stealth skill of assassins will be modified in this competition. The maximum duration of stealth is 180 seconds, and the cooldown is 60 seconds. Assassin AFK? That's too shameless." Hearing the host's words, the players on the field sighed. There are such dirty people in a professional competition. Those who could participate in the Pro League were all famous experts. Relying on the advantage of their class to hack was a low-class act. In the eyes of normal players, pro players shouldn't be so shameless. Hearing the players' sighs, the Chinese audience once again covered their faces and sighed. In the end, they were a small foreign country and didn't know much. Bah, isn't that cheating? Famous Sword Dao Shui expressed his strong condemnation of this rule, seriously protesting against it. There were so many classes, so why was it only targeting assassins? Who asked you to be so shameless? To place one's pride mocked him from the side. Your shamelessness has alarmed the system, and the system specially changed the rules for you. Do you still not know how to repent? That's right, that's right. Chun Xiang also agreed. Dao Shui, you could be considered a milestone. F***CK you guys. This old and young pair made famous Sword Dao Shui's dark face turn red. Just as the two finished their sarcastic remarks, the host continued. Esports is a healthy competitive sport. Esports athletes should abide by professional ethics. Indecent words and actions are strictly prohibited. If there is a violation, you will be forced to leave the field with a red card. Indecent. Chun Xiang rubbed his chin and mumbled. This line is a bit ambiguous. Can anyone tell me what is indecent? Wu Ji glanced at a place one's pride, then looked at Mingdu and Wang Yu. he concluded from the side, kicking crotches, cursing, and fighting off stage. Fortunately, Chun Xiang wiped the sweat off his forehead. I'm humble, elegant, and upright. You can't blame me for this kind of thing. Wretched can also be considered indecent, right? Wang Yu asked with squinted eyes. To place one's pride yelled angrily. Wretched old dog is a crime. He should be castrated. I support it. The others seconded. These are the rules of this competition. Now, let's invite both teams to enter the arena. While the Chuanjin people were talking nonsense, the host on the stage finally finished reading the rules of the competition. Motley crowd and Arirang team entered the competition room under the host's signal and laid down in the game pods. At the same time, there was a flash of light in the venue, and the game characters of both teams appeared in the venue. The first one-on-one match had begun. Although Arirang team was a professional team from Korea, they rarely participated in preliminary international competitions, so they were not well known in the local server. The guys from Chuanjin knew very little about them. Who would be the first to go up? That was the question that the Chuanjin people were most concerned about. Wuji pondered for a moment, looked at Chun Xiang, and said, Brother Chun, I'll leave the first round to you. The current combat strength of the people from Chuanjin could be said to be uneven. There were people like Wang Yu, who was invincible in one-on-one fights, and people like Mingjian Daoxue, who could only bully ordinary players with his equipment. Therefore, when facing strangers, evaluating the opponent's combat strength was the key. The strength of a professional expert was certainly not weaker than most people from Chuanjin, but compared to Wang Yu, evildoers run wild, and Yang Na, they were somewhat inferior. Therefore, sending Wang Yu or Mingjian Daoxue would not be able to accurately evaluate the opponent's strength. Although Chun Xiang's strength was not comparable to a super expert like Wang Yu, he was definitely second to none among the ordinary people in Chuanjin. Letting Chun Xiang go up first would allow everyone to roughly evaluate the level of the opponent's strength based on the battle between both sides. Okay, as the oldest player in Chuanjin, Chun Xiang was naturally extremely reliable. After receiving Wuji's order, he chose to enter the arena. At that time, Arirang team had also chosen a map. Arena competition. This map was almost a must for one-on-one matches. The map was small, and there were no terrain obstacles, making it the most suitable for one-on-one matches. After the map was chosen, the venue turned into a huge arena under the projection of the entire system. At the same time, a light flashed, and the players from Chun Xiang and Arirang team were sent to the venue at the same time. Chapter 1823. Chun Xiang's opponent was Team Arirang's player called June Snow. Her name was quite pitiful, but she was quite strong and famous in the professional circle. She carried 2 long blades on her back. Her class was obviously dual-wielding. Team Arirang's choice of arena showed that they were confident in this match. After all, if they weren't confident, they wouldn't have chosen a large map. Even if they couldn't win, they could at least run away. At the same time, Thunderclap and Frost began commentating. Seeing that the map in the venue had turned into an arena, Shocking Thunder was not surprised at all. In order to create an atmosphere, he pretended to be surprised and said, "Oh my, the map of the first round is actually an arena. It seems that Team Arirang is quite confident in themselves." "That's right," Feng Shuang chimed in from the side. "The opponent is an amateur. Anyone would be confident." "You're right." Thunderclap looked at Jun Shui on the stage and introduced, "Jun Shui from Team Arirang is a professional player with great potential. I fought against him before I retired. He was only 17 years old at the time, and I was at my peak, but I barely won. Now that Jun Shui is also at her peak, I'm sure she's much stronger than before. In contrast, Team Arirang is just a ragtag team." As he spoke, the camera turned. Thunderclap's gaze landed on Chun Xiang. When he saw Chun Xiang's appearance, he was stunned. Who is this uncle? Is he a professional player or the father of a professional player? Esports players were also athletes, and there were also people who lived their youth. Usually, the peak of an esports player was in their 20s. Once they were past their prime, professional players with some sense would quit while they were ahead and choose to retire. Otherwise, it would be very embarrassing to be pressed down on the ground by a group of juniors. However, Chun Xiang on the stage was clearly much older than Jun Snow. He wasn't a young man. He's a professional player. Frost looked at the information and said, his name is Chun Xiang. He's a dark warlock. He's 37 years old. 37 years old. Thunderclap was dumbfounded. He's the oldest player in this S-rank professional league, right? Not only that, he's the oldest player in the history of esports, Frost said. Feng Shuang said, an old steed has great ambitions. It's rare to see someone with such fighting spirit. As the only amateur team to qualify, this person naturally has his own uniqueness. Really? Thunderclap frowned and said, but letting a warlock take the lead in the first match is clearly not very wise. In the past, the first round of the competition had always been a morale booster. The significance of this round was not only to accumulate points, but more importantly, to raise the morale and fighting spirit of the teammates behind. Jun Shueshue's dual-wielding weapon battle skill was slightly faster, requiring only 0.8 seconds. On the other hand, Barrier of Darkness had a cooldown of 2 seconds. Wouldn't it be suicidal to wait until the opponent had already started charge? After all, if a spell was attacked before it was cast, the spell would be forcibly interrupted. Chun Xiang might have been sent flying before he could even cast his Dark Boundary. In the blink of an eye, Jun Shueshue was already in front of Chun Xiang. She canceled charge and twisted her waist, drawing a circle of light with her 2 swords. Ring Slash. This skill was originally called Stab Flash and was one of the warrior's 2-stage combo skills. Under normal circumstances, it would be used in conjunction with charge. When the opponent was knocked back by charge, the target would be stunned. However, in the hands of a dual-wielding weapon battle, this skill would become a ring of swords. When used together with charge, not only would it stun the opponent, but it would also be more powerful and have a wider range. The user could attack from any angle. It could be called a weaker version of Whirlwind Slash. Whoosh! A sword light spread out with Jun Shueshue at the center. Before the sword light could reach Chun Xiang, Jun Shueshue bent her left foot and stomped the ground with her right foot. She grabbed her long sword with her right hand and quickly used Rising Dragon Slash. P.S. Doesn't everyone feel that this move of Jun Shueshue's looks a little familiar? Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version of the fastest updated website, M. Chapter 1824. Awesome. Seeing this scene, Shocking Thunder could not help but cheer. The audience also widened their eyes. As a warrior class with relatively low attack power, the main damage output of a dual-wielding battle was combo attacks. The high priority of a warrior's skills, coupled with the high technique of an assassin, made the combo attacks of this class very enjoyable to watch. At the same time, the control requirements were also very high. The range of movement of the Ring Sword Slash was slightly larger than the original version of Sudden Flash, and the stun time after it was released was also longer. It was obviously more difficult to follow up with Rising Dragon Slash. However, Jun Snow was able to cancel the Ring Sword Slash at the same time, and then use Rising Dragon Slash to cancel the stun effect of the previous skill. Her reaction speed was simply shocking. In the eyes of the professional players, there was even a tendency to show off her skills. After all, the players of Korea pursued extreme control skills. As the saying went, martial arts in the world came from the corner of the wall. Since ancient times, scoundrels used Rising Dragon Slash. The effect of Rising Dragon Slash was to levitate. For a high-technique combo class, once the opponent was levitated, the opponent would give up resisting. The match was about to end, and everyone could not help but mourn for Chun Xiang. At such an old age, he was going to be sent back to his hometown in the first round of tournament. It was indeed somewhat pitiful. However, just as the sword was about to hit Chun Xiang, a green light suddenly blocked in front of him. At the same time, an evil spirit with a green face and fangs appeared between Chun Xiang and Jun Snow. F***CK. What is that? Seeing the evil spirit in front of Chun Xiang, the audience and the 2 commentators were shocked. Only the motley crew remained indifferent. It was just summoning an evil spirit. Everyone had seen it many times, so there was nothing to be surprised about. Puffed. June Snow's sword hit the evil spirit in front of Chun Xiang with a dull sound. Duong. Almost at the same time, there was another dull sound. June Snow's sword hit the evil spirit's chin. The evil spirit swayed slightly and was pushed back by June Snow's attack. Seeing that her skill had hit the wrong target, June Snow was shocked. Her figure moved, and she was about to go around the evil spirit to attack Chun Xiang again. Chun Xiang was not someone who would stand there and let others attack him. Boom! June Snow had just taken half a step back when the dark barrier rose from below and froze her on the spot. Desperate counterattack. Seeing that June Snow, who had victory in her grasp, had been countered by Spring Soar, the pro players on the field were shocked. As the saying goes, amateurs enjoy the show, while experts appreciate the artistry. In the eyes of ordinary people, Liyue Shui had only been careless, and she had been trapped by Chun Xiang's dark knot. However, in the eyes of top-tier experts, it was not that simple. Being able to fight his way to the highest S-rank competition, Chun Xiang naturally wouldn't be unaware of the difference in skill release between warlocks and warriors. However, Chun Xiang still waited until June Snow began to collide with him before releasing his dark barrier. Was he retarded? No, this was a maneuver. From this, it could be seen that Chun Xiang had clearly calculated the difference in their skills. When Liyue Shui got close to Chun Xiang, the evil spirit was unleashed precisely. When Liyue Shui reacted and tried to dodge the evil spirit, it was already too late. Skill perfect combo. If June Snow's combo of net profit relied on her own reaction and mechanics, then Chun Xiang's combo of precision relied on prediction and calculation. It was obvious who was better. Such precise judgment and calculation left all the top-notch experts in awe. Of course, this was normal for our brother Chun. June Snow was locked in place, unable to move. Chun Xiang smiled wretchedly and took a step back. At the same time, he waved his staff and wrapped a cloud of green mist around June Snow's head. Whoosh! June Snow's body was immediately dyed green, and a debuff appeared. Miasma loses 50 HP per second for 60 seconds. During this time, healing skills are ineffective. This was the most disgusting thing about warlocks, poison. Although I can't kill you in one go, I can torture you to death. Of course, Liyue Shui knew how disgusting warlocks were. Without saying a word, she struggled with her arms, and a red light burst forth from her body. As the red light flashed, Liyue Shui broke free from the dark boundary, and the miasma around her was shaken into specks of green light. Exciting. A warrior's dispel skill could remove all control effects and debuffs. After a single exchange, June Snow realized that the warlock in front of her was not as weak as he seemed. She naturally did not dare to stay any longer, and immediately rushed towards the retreating Chun Xiang. June Snow's speed was much faster than Chun Xiang's short legs. In the blink of an eye, she was in front of Chun Xiang again. She raised her hands and crossed her swords, stabbing towards Chun Xiang. However, just as June Snow's weapons were about to hit Chun Xiang, she suddenly felt her feet sink, and she was unable to move. June Snow looked down subconsciously and saw that a patch of thorns had burrowed out from under their feet, binding them tightly. "Young man, why are you so close to me?" Chun Xiang once again revealed his trademark wretched smile. "Hey, retreat." Immediately after, a mouthful of greenish-yellow phlegm sprayed on June Snow's face. If one were to say that Chun Xiang was disgusting, Liyue Shui was a little fresh meat after all. This old thing spat a mouthful of phlegm at Liyue Shui's face. Wasn't he deliberately disgusting her? Blarg! June Snow almost vomited on the spot. The audience on the stage felt disgusted, even though they were separated by a dimension. Shocking thunder and wind frost also unconsciously swallowed their saliva. I object. Seeing Chun Xiang's disgusting behavior, Ararang's team leader, March Wind, finally could not take it anymore. He raised his hand in protest. That warlock's behavior is too unsightly. I suggest that he be disqualified. Objection invalid. As soon as Marchwind said that, the system calmly said, the player's skill release is correct. The match continues. Skill release? Marchwind looked at the stage with a dazed expression. As expected, another status appeared above Jon Snow's head. Plague. Movement speed decreased by 50%. Physical defense and magic defense decreased by 50%. Duration, 60 seconds. During the duration, acceleration skills and defensive auras are ineffective. That's right. Chun Xiang was clearly using skill release. So how could his behavior be unsightly? Everyone should be reasonable. Blarg. Seeing that Jon Snow was indeed affected by the skill, Marchwind spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it. Does a warlock have such a disgusting way of casting skills? On the other side of the venue, the Chuanjin members were also discussing. F***CK, Brother Chun is too disgusting. He set his skill to this state. It's not like he's only disgusted for a day or two. He's clearly trying to attack Jon Snow mentally. So F***King Dirty. Chapter 1825. If even Chuanjin said that Chun Xiang was disgusting, it could be seen just how disgusting Chun Xiang's actions were. However, in comparison, the most disgusting of all was Chun Xiang's skill. The advantage of dual wielding was the survivability of a warrior and the mobility of an assassin. With Chun Xiang's spit, Jon Snow's defense and movement speed were both halved. Jon Snow lost her class advantage. Jon Snow couldn't dodge Chun Xiang's skills even at full health, and now that her movement speed was halved, she was naturally suppressed by Chun Xiang. This was a classic Chun Xiang playstyle. Predict the enemy's moves, and then slowly advance, not giving the opponent any chance to counterattack. As long as the opponent made one wrong move, they would fall deeper and deeper. Chun Xiang's damage output wasn't high, but no one could withstand the warlock's poison skills. After all, if Jon Snow wanted to attack Chun Xiang, she had to get close. Chun Xiang didn't need to throw skills elsewhere. He just needed to throw 2 skills at his feet, and he would be able to kill Jon Snow. Then, he would poison left and right, giving Jon Snow layer after layer of poison buffs. Jon Snow could be considered a top expert in terms of mechanics, but in front of Chun Xiang, she couldn't display her skills. In the end, Chun Xiang killed her on the stage. As her name suggested, Jon Snow died a wrongful death. Seeing that the outcome of the match had been decided, Chun Xiang was teleported back to his team with a flash of light. The motley crew had won the first point. Shocking Thunder and Wind Frost didn't know what to say. On the professional stage, the 37-year-old Chun Xiang could definitely be considered an old competitor. The finesse of his mechanics was far from that of a youngster at his peak. Warlocks were also a very weak class in 1v1s. They had thought that this combination would just be a free point, but this old man and this ridiculous class had actually defeated a young expert at his peak. What was even more unbelievable was that Jon Snow hadn't even touched Chun Xiang once and had been crowd-controlled to death. In esports, mechanics were the basics, and professional characters were the hardware. Chun Xiang played to his strengths and avoided his weaknesses. He knew that he wouldn't be a match for a young professional player in terms of mechanics, so he didn't even think about going head-to-head with Jun Shui. Instead, he used his ability to predict and experience to play a powerful opponent in the palm of his hand until he died, vividly illustrating the 4 words great skill without hard work. The position of a warlock was control, and Chun Xiang used his own actions to show the whole world what a textbook control was. Although Jon Snow had lost due to strategy and underestimating her opponent, Chun Xiang's ability to predict and suppress his techniques with his experience showed that he was no weaker than a top-tier expert. Is this the level of the amateur team? It can't be, right? Could it be that I misunderstood what it means to be an amateur? It was obvious that Thunderclap and Frost hadn't paid much attention to gaming competitions after their retirement. They didn't have a certain understanding of the motley crew that had fought their way from the amateur group to the professional group and then defeated 9 states in the professional group to qualify. These guys were ruthless people who had crushed 9 states to the ground. Being an amateur team only meant that they weren't a professional esports team, but it didn't mean that they weren't strong enough. Obviously, not only Thunderclap and Frost, but other teams other than 9 states also misunderstood the word amateur. Now that June Snow was beaten by Chun Xiang, everyone began to reevaluate this legendary amateur team. Is this the strength of the amateur team? If the amateur team is so strong, then won't 9 states crush everyone this time? Beside June Snow, a player named September Chrysanthemum said in horror. Oomph. March Wind said disapprovingly, I think they're just bluffing. What do you mean? The others didn't understand. This warlock should be the strongest core player of their team. At the same time, the captain of BTR team, Ava, also analyzed his teammates. The reason why Motley Crue allowed him to start the first round was to hurt the fighting spirit of Ari Lang team. Gua continued. This warlock's advantage so far is his predictive casting and skill calculation. For someone as old as him, his skill level must be much lower than the younger generation. If June Snow wasn't too impulsive and got distracted by the warlock, it's hard to say who would win this match. Agua was a top player who could compete with 9 states after all. Although Agua was amazed by Chun Xiang's fighting style in the beginning, he analyzed Chun Xiang thoroughly after thinking about it for a while. In a competition, it wasn't just about the player's skill level, but also about the wisdom of the battle. Chun Xiang was a middle-aged, wretched man with a belly full of evil tricks. Young people like June Snow naturally couldn't be compared to him. Even if June Snow's skill level was far better than Chun Xiang's, once she was distracted by Chun Xiang, even the strongest player would be finished. Of course, Agua's words weren't entirely correct. Although Chun Xiang was strong and had the ability to defeat professional players, he wasn't the strongest among the Chuanjin team. Brother Chun, good job. After Chun Xiang was teleported out of the arena, everyone from Motley Crue gave him a thumbs up. The guys from Chuanjin had always been looking for results and not the process. No matter how unfair Chun Xiang's method was, it was worthy of everyone's praise to be able to defeat a top player. You flatter me. Chun Xiang waved his hand and said, my old man's fighting style can only be used to catch the opponent off guard. The kid on the other side is very strong. I was almost killed a few times. Understood. After receiving the message from Chun Xiang, Wuji nodded and said, it seems that the opponent is quite strong. If June Snow is the average level of Ari Lang team, I'm afraid that apart from Old Cow and a few others, none of us will be their opponent. Who's going to fight next? Everyone from Chuanjin asked cautiously. Everyone was self-aware. In terms of wretchedness, they couldn't compare to Chun Xiang, and in terms of skill, they couldn't compare to top players. At this time, naturally, no one was willing to go up and embarrass themselves. Oldly, you go. Wuji turned around and pointed at Mingdu. Now, they must think that Brother Chun is the strongest among us. Oldly, you go first and show your weakness. Me? Am I weak? Mingdu said unhappily. Why don't you let Daoxue go? He's the weakest, all right? F***CKU. I'm your father. Ming Jian Daoxue was furious. Oldly, don't say that. Seeing that the two were about to start a fight, Wuji glared at Mingdu. That's right. Just as Daoxue was about to thank Wuji, Wuji continued. Once Daoxue goes up, won't they know our limit? Chapter 1826. Lower Limit. Originally, Ming Jian Daoxue had wanted to thank Wuji for clearing his name. However, when he heard Wuji's words, he pondered for a moment before cursing, damn you all. No one would be willing to lower their limit. However, Wuji's words weren't without reason. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. This was only the first match, so they naturally couldn't reveal their team's upper and lower limits so early. Otherwise, if the other side knew that their team's strength was uneven, the later matches wouldn't be easy to fight. Thus, hiding their strength and weaknesses was very important. After confirming the players, Mingdu clicked the confirm option and entered the arena at the same time as his opponent. The player standing in front of Mingdu was a girl, September Chrysanthemum. September Chrysanthemum wore a gray cloak and held 2 blue daggers in her hands. It wasn't hard to tell that she was an assassin. Like all assassins, September Chrysanthemum had a petite figure. Her leather armor perfectly outlined her curves. Coupled with her delicate face, Mingdu's heart rippled. There weren't many female players in the professional circle, and a female player as beautiful as September Chrysanthemum was even rarer. For Mingdu to meet September Chrysanthemum was a coincidence. Mingdu's ugly face and a beautiful girl like September Chrysanthemum on the same stage was quite interesting. At this time, the commentator, Thunder, introduced Team Aralang. September Chrysanthemum is a new player. Her class is an assassin, and she's only 19 years old. Although she's a female player, her strength shouldn't be underestimated. After introducing September Chrysanthemum, Thunder's gaze landed on Mingdu's face. After a moment, Thunder organized his words and said, "Player Mingdu from Motley Mob is a mage. This is Mingdu's first time on the professional stage. I've heard that he's a very special expert. Is there something special about his looks?" Feng Shuang asked in a low voice. "I'm not sure. That's what the information says," Thunder said. "Huh." After going on stage, Mingdu smiled and raised his eyebrows at September Chrysanthemum. "Beauty, leave me your number. I'll treat you to tea after the match." The competition arena was silent. Although Mingdu's voice was not loud, both the audience and the players in the arena heard him clearly. Hearing Mingdu's words, everyone was stunned. Asking a girl out on the field? What the hell was this bastard thinking? The Chuanjin people below the stage were also dumbfounded. This idiot is making a fool of himself again. The girl opposite him is a foreigner. What's the use of him doing this? As expected, September Chrysanthemum did not respond to Mingdu's nonsense. Instead, it disappeared into thin air. Although assassins could only clean up the mess in team fights, they were definitely the unrivaled king class in PvP. In a situation where they didn't have any anti-stealth equipment, assassins basically had no natural enemies. Even the tanky classes could only slightly restrain them. In front of a skilled assassin, they wouldn't be able to completely suppress them. As for the vulnerable classes like mages and archers, they were basically lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of the elusive assassin. After all, the explosive damage of assassins was quite terrifying. Once the assassins successfully ambushed them, the vulnerable classes would be instantly killed. Naturally, Mingdu also knew that assassins countered him. Seeing September Chrysanthemum activate stealth, Mingdu hurriedly took a few steps back and stuck to the edge of the stage. More than half of assassins' skills dealt damage from behind, and the damage from behind was very high. Not leaving one's back to the assassin was the basic quality of an expert. After sticking to the edge of the stage, Mingdu pointed his staff at the ground. Boom! A wave of flames spread from Mingdu, covering the ground around Mingdu in the blink of an eye. Sea of Flames was a rare, though-y skill of mages. It could release flames on the ground within a designated range of 500 meters. This spell dealt continuous damage, dealing burn damage every second. Compared to other explosive spells, the instantaneous damage wasn't as high. However, it lasted for a full 3 minutes. The assassin's stealth skill also lasted for 3 minutes after being modified. After releasing Sea of Flames, Mingdu stood in the middle of the flames with a clear conscience, vigilantly watching his surroundings without moving. Assassin's stealth only lasted 180 seconds. September Chrysanthemum originally wanted to rush up and use a set of skills to take Mingdu away, but seeing Mingdu use such a method, September Chrysanthemum hurriedly stopped. In Rebirth, Assassin's stealth would only be forcibly cancelled when they were forced to move or attack. It would not be cancelled when they received damage. However, assassins were also a vulnerable class. If it was a tanky class, they naturally wouldn't be afraid of the so-called continuous burn. It didn't matter even if they had to wade through the fire, but assassins absolutely wouldn't dare to step on a mage's magic. As the saying goes, every version has a generation of gods, and every version has a generation of mages. Mages were the children of the system, the highest damage output of all classes. No matter how confident a vulnerable class was, they wouldn't dare to step on an unfamiliar mage's magic. Moreover, this was the International Pro League. Those who could reach this stage were all top-notch experts. The fire set by a top-notch mage couldn't be stepped on. Helpless, September Chrysanthemum could only stand outside the range of Sea of Flames. He squinted his eyes and stared at Mingdu, trying to find an opportunity to attack. At this time, Shocking Thunder and Frost both explained, "What a good Sea of Flames tactic. This motley crew's Mingdu may not look impressive, but his tactics are quite mature. Although this Sea of Flames doesn't deal any damage, it directly blocked September Chrysanthemum's stealth. Too shameless." Seeing that in order to prevent September Chrysanthemum from getting close to him, Mingdu shamelessly set fire at his feet, the audience below the stage booed. This was especially so for the Chinese audience. They had long since experienced Xuanzhen's almost shameless method of wasting time. Now that they saw Mingdu use this tactic, they couldn't help but think of Xuanzhen's hide-and-seek tactics in the previous Pro League. That was a drowsy 30 minutes. Could it be that this scene was going to reappear in the International Pro League? If possible, of course, Mingdu also wanted a tie with September Chrysanthemum. However, the duration of the skill was limited. Mingdu could only use Sea of Flames to block September Chrysanthemum for 3 minutes. A match was 30 minutes long. 3 minutes wouldn't make much of a difference. Time ticked by, and Mingdu continued to watch his surroundings vigilantly, silently counting down the time. And outside of Sea of Flames, September Chrysanthemum was also quietly counting down. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. When the two silently counted to 1, Mingdu's Sea of Flames disappeared from the ground. The air in front of Mingdu twisted, and September Chrysanthemum appeared. Chapter 1827. Now's the time. The moment the Sea of Fire disappeared, September Chrysanthemum's eyes tensed up. He immediately activated swift movement. He held onto his dagger with both hands and left behind an afterimage. Like a ray of light, he instantly crossed a distance of 5 meters and arrived in front of Radiant City. Die! Following September Chrysanthemum's shout, the dagger stabbed towards Mingdu's chest. At the same time, a line of words appeared above September Chrysanthemum's head. Shura, Instant Hell Annihilation. As an assassin's awakening skill, Shura Instant Hell Annihilation's visual effect was not as flashy as other classes, but its instantaneous damage was absolutely unparalleled. It looked as simple and crude as a backstab, but it was enough to instantly kill any non-tank class. Even a tank class would be half dead if they were hit by it. Mingdu was just a mage. If he was hit by an awakening skill, he would naturally die. However, the moment September Chrysanthemum's Shura Instant Hell Annihilation stabbed into Mingdu, Mingdu's figure flashed and appeared a few meters behind September Chrysanthemum. Flash! Mingdu's strength was the strongest in Xuanzhen other than Chun Xiang. Putting aside his terrifying damage output, this kid's control and judgment were extremely strong. Even Wang Yu almost lost to Mingdu when he first met him. When September Chrysanthemum was counting down for Mingdu's Sea of Fire skill, Mingdu was also counting down for September Chrysanthemum's stealth skill. Since September Chrysanthemum's stealth was released a little earlier than Mingdu's Sea of Fire, September Chrysanthemum appeared before Mingdu's Sea of Fire disappeared. Seeing September Chrysanthemum's figure, Mingdu had already made the decision to cast a spell. The moment September Chrysanthemum rushed in front of Mingdu, Mingdu had already finished chanting the flash skill and perfectly dodged September Chrysanthemum's ultimate skill. When experts fought, every move was fatal. After Mingdu appeared behind September Chrysanthemum, he did not slack off. He slammed his staff on the ground and shouted, "Rise!" Boom! With a loud bang, a stone wall that was several meters tall suddenly protruded from the ground. The end of the stone wall was connected to the edge of the arena, forming an arc that encircled the position where Mingdu had been standing. The higher a skill's priority was, the longer the skill's stun duration would be. The 9-moon Chrysanthemum Azura instant hellish kill missed, and while it was still in its stun state, It could not dodge in time. Caught off guard, Bright City's stone wall surrounded it. It's over. Seeing this scene, Thunderclap said in astonishment, flash into connecting Earth Wall and reverse control. If Mingdu uses the thunderstorm spell now, September's chrysanthemum won't have a chance. Gotcha. Before Thunderclap's voice faded away, Mingdu's left hand made a grabbing motion and pulled down a bolt of lightning from the sky. He pointed at Ju's chrysanthemum, and in an instant, a lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket fell from the sky and struck Ju's chrysanthemum. The thunderstorm spell's attack range directly enveloped the space enclosed by the stone wall. September Chrysanthemum had nowhere to hide. Seeing that September Chrysanthemum was about to be killed by Mingdu, she suddenly leaped up and grabbed the edge of the stone wall. Her body nimbly flipped over the top of the wall. Way of the Assassin can jump over the nearest building or terrain within a maximum of 100 yards in the direction of the target. Boom! The lightning bolt landed and blasted a large hole in the ground. September Chrysanthemum rolled on the ground until she reached Mingdu's feet. She raised her dagger and swung it upwards, aiming for Mingdu's crotch. She was almost killed by Mingdu's sneak attack. It was clear that September Chrysanthemum had a lot of resentment in her heart. Damn, Mingdu never expected this girl to be a thief. Suddenly being approached by someone, Mingdu's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously waved the staff in his hand and pushed the dagger that was aimed at his vitals to the side. Immediately after, Mingdu retreated and condensed a thunder spear in his left hand to stab at September Chrysanthemum. However, although Mingdu was strong, he was just a mage after all. He was incomparable to an agile assassin. Before Mingdu's lightning spear could pierce out with full force, September's chrysanthemum had already rolled to Mingdu's back. She leaped up and crossed her legs over Mingdu's back. Her left hand pressed down on Mingdu's head, and her right hand gripped the dagger in a reverse grip as she ruthlessly pulled at Mingdu's neck. Puff! A symbolic blood light rose. Mingdu's neck was slit, and he turned into a white light and disappeared in front of everyone. In the second round, September Chrysanthemum won, and the Arilang team tied the score. The scene was quiet. Wow. A few seconds later, there was a fierce applause in the field. Compared with the one-sided beating of the last round, this one could be said to be full of ups and downs. At first, when they saw Mingdu's sea of fire protection, everyone thought that this kid was going to be shameless again. However, in just a few seconds after the sea of fire ended, the advantage changed 3 times in an instant. Just when everyone thought that Mingdu had lost the sea of fire protection and was going to be killed by September Chrysanthemum, Mingdu actually flashed to avoid the skill and used Stone Wall to reverse control. Just when everyone thought that Mingdu was going to win, September Chrysanthemum climbed over the stone wall and rushed in front of Mingdu, successfully counterattacking. When experts fought, every move was fatal. Both of them were DPS classes that could instantly kill their opponents. If either side made a single mistake, the other side would instantly kill them. The two of them fought back and forth, causing everyone to cry out in satisfaction. Although Bright Doe had been killed by September Chrysanthemum Slit Throat, it was still a glorious defeat. This match had left a deep impression on everyone. After September Chrysanthemum teleported back to the team, she could not help but secretly break out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, she reacted fast just now. Otherwise, she would have been killed by Mingdu's thunder on the spot. It seemed that this motley crew had some skill. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Seeing September Chrysanthemum's counterattack, shocking Thunder sighed awkwardly. There really is always someone stronger than you, and there is always someone stronger than you. The standard of this competition really didn't disappoint me. Huh. Marchwind smiled. That Chunxiang from before and Mingdu from the last match. From their fighting style, it seems that their strength is about the same. It seems that this is their average strength. Their mechanical skill is also at the level of a second-tier pro team, but for amateurs like them, it's not bad. At this point, Marchwind paused for a moment before continuing. It seems like these guys are using tactics as their main fighting style. Everyone, Be careful and don't fall into their trap. Understood. Hearing Marchwind's command, everyone nodded. Under normal circumstances, esports competitions, especially duels, were mainly fought with mechanical skill. After all, mechanical skill was the best indicator of a player's individual strength. However, there were some eccentrics among esports players. If their mechanical skill wasn't good enough, they would use tricks to make up for it. These types of people were usually called tactical players, and in the eyes of esports players, they were looked down upon. After all, in the face of mechanical skill, crafty tricks were a bit crooked. Chapter 1828. That was because tactics and mechanics were different. It was a given that a player's mechanics were good, but tactics had a certain chance of success. If the opponent was cautious, the success rate of tactics would be unbelievably low. I'll go for the next round. Marchwind looked at his teammates and said, I'll give you guys an example. It'll save us the trouble of dying in the hands of second-rate players. It'll be fine if we lose to BTR, but it'll be embarrassing if we lose to an amateur team. On the Motley Bunch side, Mingdu looked like he had not had enough. He shook his head and sighed. What a pity, what a pity. Yeah, seeing this. Wang Yu comforted him. You almost won. T. What does winning or losing have to do with me? Mingdu rolled his eyes at Wang Yu and said, If I had turned around when the girl hugged me, wouldn't she have given me a bottle of facial cleanser? Wang Yu had a blank look on her face. Facial cleanser? Facial cleanser? Cosmetics can be brought in? Ayaya, I don't have anything in common with you. Mingdu shook his head speechlessly and returned to his seat. Wang Yu was left standing there wondering how the facial cleanser was brought into the game. I'll go for the third round. Seeing that Mingdu was defeated, Evildoers Run Wild said proudly, We have to play it safe in the first round. Every point counts. There's no need to use a butcher's knife to crack a nut. Wuji waved his hand and said, I'll go. You? Everyone was surprised. You're a cleric. It's not good to get physical. How should they put it? Although Wuji was the leader of Chuanjin's gangsters, he was still a cleric at the end of the day. Putting his mechanics aside, this class was not a combat class. I can't let you guys go up either. Wuji said calmly, in terms of mechanics, other than Old Cow and the others, were no match for them. In terms of tactics, with what happened just now as an example, they definitely won't fall for it again. This is only the first match, so we can't reveal our true strength. As for you guys, you definitely won't be able to handle it. Now I can only go up. Bah, what's the use of you? Ling Longmeng's face was full of disdain. That's still good enough. You don't even have balls. Wuji looked at Exquisite Dream with a wretched expression. F***CK. Ling Longmeng was stunned when she heard this. She immediately wanted to cripple Wuji in anger. Wuji smiled faintly, turned into a beam of light, and teleported to the arena. At the same time, Marchwind was already waiting in the arena. Marchwind wore a green robe and held a gray magic staff in his hand. A large green gem was embedded at the top of the staff. It was obvious that Marchwind was a mage, and an extremely rare wind mage at that. In terms of damage output, wind mages were slightly inferior to fire and lightning mages. However, in terms of PK ability, wind mages were definitely second to none. This was because this class was the strongest factor in PK in holographic online games. Speed. In the world of martial arts, only speed was unbeatable. Although it was just a saying in the movies, in the game, fast players could really do anything they wanted. Wind mages could use all kinds of wind magic to increase their speed. With a small buff on their body, not only could they run like a rabbit, they could also fly in the sky. Moreover, there was no pre-chant to cast spells. In other words, they could come and go like the wind. Normal assassins would have to retreat when facing a wind mage. As for Wuji, seeing Wuji enter the arena, not only did the audience fall silent, even the two commentators, Thunderclap and Frost, did not know what to say. Meow, this motley team was really confusing. Warlocks at least had control skills and a body full of poison, so they had some okay abilities. What about clerics? Such a pure support class. Could it be that they would go up and heal the opponent to death? Seeing Wuji's harmless smile on the arena, Thunderclap and Frost felt their heads hurt. After the previous two matches, everyone realized that this motley team was unusual. At this time, the clerics suddenly went on stage to fight one-on-one. No one felt that it was too strange. They just couldn't figure out what this group of people was thinking in their heads. Clerics were fine, but they were just a support class. They definitely wouldn't have an advantage in PvP against Wind Mages, the king of duels. However, everyone had seen the motley team's various tactics. If they said that clerics were not good, they were afraid of being slapped in the face. Retired pro players were still pro players. They still had a save face. Of course, as a commentator, he had to introduce the player on stage. Thunderclap could only laugh dryly. This motley team selection is as unique as always. They actually chose a cleric to fight a 1v1. Are they up to something? Isn't that so? These guys are full of bad things. Getting a cleric is most likely up to no good. Hearing this, the audience on stage thought in unison. Oomph. On the arena, March Wind sized up Wuji and snorted. If you have any tricks up your sleeves, use them all. So you can speak Mandarin. Hearing March Wind's words, Wuji laughed as he walked forward. I'm just a cleric, what tricks can I have? In the face of absolute strength, tricks are useless. Looks like you're not stupid. Seeing Wuji approach him, March Wind frowned. He raised his staff and shot a wind blade at Wuji. Poochie! With a muffled sound, the wind blade cut into Wuji's body, and the health bar above Wuji's head dropped by a huge chunk. Unhurriedly, Wuji cast a healing spell on his head. Whoosh! His health bar returned to full. Once his health was full, Wuji pointed at his head and laughed. Come, fight me. Let's see if you can deal more damage, or I can heal faster. When Wuji said this, March Wind could not help but be stunned. Below the arena, Shocking Thunder was also surprised. What's going on? Is this cleric going to fight the sorcerer to the death? The Wind Sorcerer's only weakness was his damage output, while the Holy Cleric was best at healing. If these two classes fought each other to heal, there would be no time. Not only could the cleric heal, but they also had the invincible Holy Light Shield. No matter what, they could not fight the Wind Sorcerer for 30 minutes. This way, Team Arilang would suffer a great loss. After all, the cleric was not a combat class, but the Wind Sorcerer was a proper combat class. If March Wind and Wuji had a score of 0 in the arena, wouldn't it be equivalent to a support taking the home field? Seeing March Wind's expression, Wuji smiled and suggested, if this continues, you won't be able to kill me, and I won't be able to kill you either. It's not good to waste 30 minutes of everyone's precious time. Let's just call it a draw. 4_4613/. Chapter 1829. F***CK. How shameless. The entire stadium was silent, and everyone was translating at the same time. Wuji's words fell into the ears of all the spectators without missing a single word. Immediately, the audience went wild. Good, this son of AB*TCH really wanted to rely on healing himself until the end. If Chun Xiang and Mingdu had relied on tactics in the previous 2 rounds, Wuji was purely shameless. March Wind snorted and said disdainfully, Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Sea of flames, rise. As he spoke, March Wind's staff flicked upwards, and a sea of flames rose beneath Wuji's feet. Seeing this, Wuji chuckled and unhurriedly cast a holy healing technique on his head. Although March Wind could also use fire spells, as a wind mage, March Wind's wind attributes were all boosted by the wind element. Therefore, the continuous damage of a sea of flames was not high, and Wuji lost more than 300 HP every second. On the other hand, Wuji's holy healing was a continuous healing skill that could recover 500 HP every second. As a result, March Wind's damage output could not keep up with Wuji's recovery speed. Wuji was strolling leisurely in the sea of flames. Seeing Wuji walk around in the fire so arrogantly, March Wind's lips curled into a sinister smile. He then stretched his left hand forward, and the staff in his right hand flashed with a green light. Whoosh! A gust of wind howled, and a whirlwind appeared on the flat ground of the arena. A huge whirlwind rose from beneath Wuji's feet. As the saying goes, fire borrows the power of the wind. When the sea of fire under Wuji's feet was blown by the tornado, it immediately rolled up a 3 zhang tall flame. Under the support of the tornado, it formed a fierce flaming tornado. This is a combination spell, Flaming Whirlwind. After all, Thunder was a pro player and was very knowledgeable. He could tell at a glance that March Wind was casting a combination spell. Wind magic's damage wasn't explosive, but once the wind magic was combined with the fire element, the fire magic would also receive an increase of the same level. In other words, this flame tornado not only had the speed of wind magic, but it also had the high damage of fire magic. As expected of a top-notch expert, his moves were indeed extraordinary. Below the stage, Mingdu's eyes were wide open. Combination magic was Mingdu's forte. Naturally, Mingdu knew better than anyone else how terrifying this flaming whirlwind was. If Wuji's healers couldn't keep up with this wave of damage, they might die instantly. Of course, March Wind knew how shameless and difficult his opponent was to deal with. Naturally, he did not think that a single flaming whirlwind would be enough to kill Wuji. After the flaming whirlwind enveloped Wuji, March Wind waved his left hand, and a large fireball appeared around him. Then, with a flash of green light from his right hand, a gust of wind blew, and the large fireball swelled up into a huge ball of flames. With a whistling sound, it continuously smashed towards Wuji. Rumble, 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 rumble. Following a series of violent explosions, Wuji was smashed solidly and was instantly engulfed in flames. In the arena, the place where Wuji stood was even blasted into a ball of pink smoke. This smoke is a little interesting. Seeing the pink smoke, Thunder frowned slightly. Although he was puzzled, he did not say anything. After all, Thunder only knew the settings of the combination spell, and this was the first time he had seen it. Who knew what special effects it had? Wouldn't it be very embarrassing if he spoke blindly based on his intuition and got slapped in the face? On the other hand, March Wind, who was in the arena, was dumbfounded. Fire magic would have the special effect of smoke, but when the wind blew, the smoke would disperse. Therefore, the combination of fire and wind magic would definitely not produce smoke. Could this pink smoke be the priest's smokescreen? Thinking of this, March Wind was shocked and immediately summoned a fire dragon. With a gust of wind, the fire dragon flew close to the ground and blew towards the pink smoke that had spread to less than 2 meters away from him. Whoosh! The wind fire dragon blew past, and the pink smoke was completely blown away. When the smoke dispersed, Wuji's figure could be seen. At this moment, Wuji's body was emitting the golden light of the Holy Light Shield, and he was less than 2 meters away from March Wind. Martyrdom! Wuji squinted his eyes, spread his arms, and let out a roar. Not good! March Wind suddenly thought of something and turned around to run, but when he reacted, it was already too late. Before March Wind could move his legs, March Wind was suddenly pulled in front of Wuji uncontrollably. Wuji's arms immediately grabbed March Wind's body tightly. Let me go! March Wind was shocked, and he struggled with all his might, trying to break free from Wuji's grasp. Unfortunately, March Wind and Wuji were both mages, and he did not have the slightest advantage in terms of strength. Naturally, no matter how much he struggled, it was useless. Reckoning. After hugging March Wind, Wuji lightly spat out these 2 words. At the same time, a dazzling holy light burst forth from Wuji's body. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise, March Wind was blown into a white light, and the HP bar above Wuji's head was only left with a little HP. When the local players saw this familiar scene, they all revealed a smile of understanding. It had appeared the complete reality Halal Cleric's self-destruct skill. After blowing March Wind up dead, Wuji casually cast a healing skill on himself and said with a helpless expression, I told you that we were tied, but you didn't listen. Look, we were so close. After being blown off the stage, March Wind did not even have time to react. Hearing Wuji talking to himself, March Wind, who was below the stage, felt like his lungs were about to explode. March Wind was also very cautious against Wuji, afraid that he would fall into some kind of trap. However, he did not expect Wuji to first act like he was stalling for time, and then slowly get close to him, and then come up with such an attack that actually blew him up. How shameless could he be? Third round. The motley crew won. The score was now 1 point apart. I get it. I get it. As the results of the match were announced, Shocking Thunder also shouted from below the stage, "I know why they fought like this." Seeing Shocking Thunder's expression, the audience rolled their eyes. This commentator was really lacking. He could not keep up with the pace of the match at all. Why was he still shouting after the match was over? Of course, in the eyes of the Chuanjin players, Wuji's shamelessness was purely a basic operation. After all, he was the leader of Chuanjin. Even a lackey like Chun Xiangmingdu was so shameless. As the boss of Chuanjin, Wuji was naturally more shameless than anyone else in Chuanjin. Chapter 1830. Boss, you did a good job. Seeing March Wind being knocked out of the ring, the members of Team Aurilang gathered around and joked with March Wind. Yeah, March Wind said shamelessly. I use my actions to prove how shameless the players on the other side are. Everyone should learn from it. Hearing March Wind's words, everyone booed. Could it be that the basic quality of a boss was to be shameless? All right, March Wind was not as shameless as Wuji. He quickly changed the topic. We have lost 2 points, and the situation is not looking good. We can't lose the next 2 matches. No one wants to lose. Jun Shui said gloomily, but you know those guys on the other side. None of them have good intentions, and none of them want to fight you one-on-one. There's no way to fight you, all right? Then do you know why we lost? March Wind asked back. We lost because we're all righteous people, and they are all filthy people. Jun Snow said fiercely. It seemed like she was quite resentful after being trampled on by Chun Xiang. No. March Wind waved his hand and said, we lost because we wanted to win too much. One had to admit that March Wind was an excellent esports player, and he was very good at summarizing the experience of failure. After walking on the stage, March Wind still benefited a lot. Wanted to win too much. Jun Snow was slightly confused after hearing March Wind's words. That's right, March Wind said calmly. Our only thought after going on the ring is to win this match, while our opponents are trying to protect themselves and not get killed so easily. This way, the more eager we are to win, the easier it is for us to take the initiative. If we take the initiative, we will fall into their trap. Makes sense. After listening to March Wind's explanation, Jun Snow and the others nodded. Wasn't that right? In the previous 3 matches, the Ragtag team had only sent 2 support classes. They didn't have the slightest bit of offensive power. The only DPS class was just standing there and talking nonsense without taking action. On the other hand, they had taken the initiative to attack every time. That was why they had fallen into their opponent's trap. So in the next match, we have to put away our aggressive mentality, or we will still lose points. March Wind continued. Put away our aggressive mentality? Isn't that a little difficult? Wasn't everyone here to win? How could they win if they didn't attack? Of course you guys can't. March Wind smiled and said, so for this match, February Frost should go. Me? As soon as March Wind said this, the silent, brawny man, who had been sitting in the corner without saying a word, revealed a surprised expression. Yes, March Wind said, you're a shield warrior, a defensive type class. You won't be tricked if you enter the field. But just when Ryu Shuang was about to say something, March Wind interrupted, don't worry. Just stand there and wait for the enemy to attack you first. I've seen that there's no class that can restrain you. Previously, shield warriors have been countered by mages and archers because warriors had low magic resistance. Moreover, archers had an armor-piercing skill that could pierce through a shield warrior's armor. However, after equipping a shield, shield warriors basically had no natural enemies other than their own DPS. Only mages could deal damage through the shield, giving shield warriors a headache. However, now that the ragtag team's 3 magical classes had all left the battlefield, all that remained were physical damage dealers. Shield warriors were not afraid of assassins and shield warriors, but warriors and grandmasters of combat had to face shield warriors head-on, which was what February Frost wanted. As for archers, once shield warriors activated shield wall, normal archers couldn't even deal damage. Alright, since the leader had said so, February Frost could only follow the arrangement. At the same time, on the ragtag team side, Wuji was also analyzing. Now that we're ahead in points, the opponent is afraid of our tactics. They won't take the initiative to attack in the next match. Old fish, you'll go this round. If you can win, just fight. If you can't, just run. The opponent definitely won't chase after you. Okay, Bai Mingyu had always been a person of few words. Seeing Wuji's arrangement, she did not ask much and immediately chose to enter the field. With a flash of light, Bai Mingyu and February Frost appeared in the arena at the same time. Shocking Thunder also began to introduce them off stage. February Frost. This name suits you very well. After introducing the 2 people on the stage, Shocking Thunder turned his head and smiled at February Red. February Red also joked, maybe he's my long-lost brother. Assassin versus Shield Warrior. This class is a counter to both. That's not necessarily true. This assassin is a tactical assassin. He might be a match for Shield Warriors. Looking at the 2 people on the stage, the audience began to discuss. Match start. As the system notifications sounded, Bai Mingyu lowered her body, activated swift movement, and charged at February Frost. Oh, so arrogant? She doesn't even use stealth? Assassins were a class that specialized in guerrilla warfare. Seeing Bai Mingyu charging at him so openly, Feng Shuang, the commentator, was surprised. You don't know this, right? Shocking Thunder explained, an assassin's burst has no advantage against a shield warrior. Whether it's a frontal attack or a rear attack, there's not much difference. If they can't take it head-on, they can use stealth to escape. As a former professional, Shocking Thunder had some real skills. The reason why Bai Mingyu didn't use stealth was because Shocking Thunder was right. In the arena, February Frost stood still so that Bai Mingyu would take the initiative to attack him. Seeing Bai Mingyu charging at him, February Frost was overjoyed. When Bai Mingyu was in front of him, February Frost smashed a shield on the ground with his left hand and activated shield wall. At the same time, he hooked his right hand at Bai Mingyu and shouted, "Come and hit me." Bai Mingyu was directly pulled to February Frost's shield by taunt. February Frost pushed his shield forward and stunned Bai Mingyu. Then, he pulled out a one-handed sword with his right hand and stabbed at Bai Mingyu's head. Bang! However, when February Frost's sword pierced through Bai Mingyu's head, she suddenly exploded and turned into a pile of pieces. At the same time, the air behind February Frost distorted. Bai Mingyu stabbed at his back with a dagger in both hands. Shadow Clone. February Frost was a bona fide pro player, the kind that could even make it into the World's Pro League. His control and reaction speed were top-notch. After his sword missed, February Frost realized Bai Mingyu's feint. He turned to the left and used Shield Strike with his left shield, drawing an arc behind him. Puffed. Bai Mingyu stabbed February Frost back with her dagger. Bang! / / /4_4613/. Chapter 1831. This was the difference between an assassin and a tank. Although Bai Mingyu's damage was much higher than February Shuang's, both of them lost around 1/10 of their HP when they smashed in each other's heads. It could not be helped. Tanks had high defense and high HP. Tens of thousands of damage was nothing to February Shuang. The only difference was that February Shuang did not move an inch when Bai Mingyu stabbed him with her dagger. However, when February Shuang smashed a shield on Bai Mingyu's head, Bai Mingyu was sent flying. At the same time, she was stunned. Fish Bai Ming reacted extremely quickly. After a single exchange, she immediately realized the gap between her and February Frost. Hence, She shook her arms and used a clear skill to dispel the fainted status. She then activated stealth, intending to activate clear. However, at this moment, February Shuang had already rammed into Bai Ming Yoyu's body. Bam! Bai Ming Yoyu was forcefully interrupted when she was in stealth. She was pushed to the edge of the ring by the impact. It's over. She's pushed into the corner. Shocking Thunder shouted in excitement when he saw Bai Ming Yoyu being pushed to the edge of the ring by February Shuang. Anyone who played PvP in the arena would know that the corner was basically a forbidden area for the players in the arena. This was especially true for a class that relied on movement. Once one side was pushed into the corner, they would lose their most advantageous speed advantage. Their movement ability would also be taken away on the spot. In this way, the one in the corner would have nowhere to hide and could only hold their head and take the beating. Moreover, in the game, the wall had a collision effect. After a class with high identification, like a shield warrior, pushed the opponent into the corner, they could use the terrain to create a secondary collision effect. For example, if February Frost pushed Fish Biming into a corner and Fish Biming would be smashed into the edge of the stage by the impact, there would be additional damage and a wall effect. This way, the effect of February Frost's skill would be prolonged, and after the next skill, he would be able to CC the target in the corner continuously. Sure enough, the battle just now was within Ryu Shuang's calculation. After knocking Bai Ming Yoyu into the corner, Ryu Shuang suddenly took a step forward and threw the shield in her hand at Bai Ming Yoyu horizontally. Duan. After hitting the edge of the arena, Bai Ming Yoyu didn't even land on the ground when February Shuang's shield smashed into her waist. Bai Ming Yoyu was once again smashed into the wall and then fell heavily to the ground. No matter how low February Frost's attack was, it was still very effective against a squishy class like the Assassin. After this set of skills, Bai Ming Yoyu's health bar was reduced by half. During this gap, Ryu Shuang had already arrived at Bai Ming Yoyu's side with heavy steps. Before Bai Ming Yoyu could get up, Ryu Shuang stomped on her chest, took the heavy shield with both hands, and smashed it down on Bai Ming Yoyu's head with all her strength. We won. The Ararang contestants clenched their fists when they saw fish in the North Sea being stepped on by Ryu Shuang. In comparison, an assassin's priority was negligible in front of tank. With February Frost's stomp, Bai Ming Yoyu couldn't get up no matter what. Next, Bai Ming Yoyu was crushed to death by February Frost. Duan. The shield smashed heavily on Bai Ming Yoyu's head on the arena. Just when everyone thought Bai Ming Yoyu was going to be crushed to death, February Shuang suddenly felt that there was nothing under his feet. February Shuang quickly looked down and saw that Bai Ming Yoyu was no longer under his feet. At the same time, on the other side of February Shuang, Bai Ming Yoyu drilled half of her body out of the ground. She was still in shock, and her forehead was covered in cold sweat. Earth Escape, despicable fellow. Seeing that Bai Ming Yoyu still had such a shameless skill, February Shuang turned around and smashed a shield at Bai Ming Yoyu again. Bai Ming Yoyu didn't panic. She shrunk her body and disappeared without a trace like a fish diving into the water. Soon, she popped her head out not far away from February Shuang and made a face at him to provoke him. Initially, February Shuang thought that Bai Ming Yoyu was definitely going to die. However, Bai Ming Yoyu managed to escape twice in a row. Seeing Bai Ming Yoyu making a face at him, February Shuang was infuriated. He raised a shield and chased after Bai Ming Yoyu. Seeing this, Bai Ming Yoyu dove into the ground again and appeared right in front of February Shuang. With one chasing and the other dodging, the audience was dumbfounded. Why? Why does the scene look so familiar? It's not familiar at all. It's whack-a-mole. I played it when I was young. Rebirth was a large-scale action RPG game that created a new era, but it was played like a 4D whack-a-mole game by these two fellows on the arena. The audience could feel the tears in the hearts of the game designers. In terms of class, shield warriors had some advantages over assassins, but that was only in PvP in the wild. After all, in the wild fighting for the boss in the leveling area, the last one standing would have the right to snatch the equipment. Whoever ran away first would lose. However, in the arena, everyone would fight to the death. In this way, shield warriors had very little advantage over assassins. Although shield warriors had high HP and high CC skills, making them unafraid of assassins' ambushes, shield warriors were notoriously short-legged. If an assassin chose not to engage the shield warrior in a melee fight and instead ran around the battlefield, the shield warrior could only watch on helplessly. Based on the performance of the motley crew in the previous rounds, no one was surprised that Baiming Yoyu would do something like this. Just like that, everyone watched the real-life whack-a-mole in the audience seats for almost half an hour before the match finally ended. It was a draw. No one scored a single point. Awesome, awesome. Old Yu is having a lot of fun. As soon as Baiming Yoyu got off the stage, she was surrounded by the Chuanjin people. Everyone praised Baiming Yoyu's wit for maintaining the 1-point advantage. You flatter me. I'm still far from Boss Wuji. Baiming Yoyu waved her hand humbly. Not being able to kill February Shuang was her only regret. Seeing that the motley crew was not ashamed of their actions, but rather proud of them, the players in the spectators' seats booed. What the hell was this? Everyone had spent so much money to buy tickets to watch the tournament, all for the sake of watching the flashy maneuvers of the experts and learning some tricks and whatnot. In the end, all they got was a bunch of bugs from eating melon seeds. After 4 consecutive rounds, other than the second round where they managed to turn the tables, there wasn't a single serious match that they got to see. One could imagine what the audience was feeling right now. Chapter 1832. Even the 9 provinces team that represented Huaxia were speechless at this moment. Xuanjin's little trick might sound like a tactical style, but to put it bluntly, it was a dirty style. Although this kind of playing style was popular when the esport industry had just started, the essence of esports was to make the players stronger in the face of competition. This kind of playing style for the sake of winning was, after all, unfashionable. It was one thing for the motley crew to do such a thing in the domestic arena. After all, they were an amateur team, so it was understandable for them to play some tricks. However, this group of people brought this trick to the international arena and even planned to carry it forward. This was a little unbearable to watch. This was like the Olympic Games. Everyone came out to compete with the face of the country. If you played dirty in the arena, it would not be honorable even if you won. After all, this was a one-on-one competition, not a team competition. The one-on-one competition was a test of a player's individual skills, while the team competition was a test of tactical ability. After 4 rounds of the competition, Marchwind was already mentally broken down by the tactics of the motley crew. What the F***CK was this? How could these kinds of scumbags participate in the international competition? If not for the fact that he could not find any flaws, Marchwind would have complained about his opponents. At this time, Marchwind had also come to terms with it. He knew that he had been completely schemed against. No matter who he sent up, the opponent would definitely still play tricks. Therefore, Marchwind also came to terms with it. He pointed a knight beside him and said, "July, you go." "Me?" The knight called July Blossom could not help but twitch his mouth when he heard that. Why should I? July Blossom had seen the battle just now. July Blossom had also clearly seen how unjustly his teammates had lost. If the opponent had defeated him fair and square, July Blossom would not be afraid. However, if he had been defeated by a bunch of dirty tricks, how humiliating would that be? Moreover, the opponent was an amateur player. "Because I'm a captain," Marchwind said unhappily. "Is that reason enough?" July Blossom was speechless. All right, there was no reason more convincing than this. However, just as the Arilang team had chosen their players for the last round, the motley crew came up with another trick. The last round, the ragtag team forfeits. Just as July Blossom was about to choose to enter the battlefield, Wang Yu of Motley Crowd suddenly stood up with a face that deserved a beating. He said, "Our Motley Crowd battle team is here to become the world champions. It is an honor for a third-rate team like you to be able to compete with us. However, for the sake of the friendship between our 2 countries, we don't want your results to be too ugly, so we've specially given you a handicap." As soon as the reason for the motley crew forfeiting the competition was revealed, everyone spat out a mouthful of blood. The Arilang squad, in particular, was so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Too arrogant. Too shameless. You're looking down on us. Every member of the Arilang squad was flushed with anger. They couldn't wait to quit the game and beat up the people from the motley squad. The Arilang battle squad was also considered a veteran team. They had experienced all kinds of battles, but it was the first time in their lives that they had encountered such an opponent. It was obviously a group of shameless people who played tricks on the battlefield and didn't dare to fight head-on. Yet, they still had the attitude that they were invincible and weren't afraid of them. What was even more infuriating was that they even shamelessly said that they would give them a handicap. For professional experts, this was simply a great insult. As for the other teams, they were even more dumbfounded. Give them a handicap? What the F***CK was this? Did they really treat the S-rank professional league as a game? They were too arrogant. Only the people from the 9 provinces battle team were watching the show. Confucius once said, "Let him be arrogant, but whoever is arrogant will perish." Although 1 point was not much, it could determine the outcome of the entire game. This group of people from Motley Crowd Battle Team could do whatever they wanted. If they won, everyone might praise them to the heavens. If they lost, the haters in the country didn't care who you were. If you didn't curse 18 generations of your ancestors, would you still be considered a keyboard warrior? They even dared to do this kind of behavior that was ridiculed by others. This group of people from Motley Crowd Battle Team really brought this upon themselves. Of course, only Chuanjin Battle Team itself knew the purpose of doing this. It couldn't be helped. There was still a long way to go in the competition. Moreover, the last team match had a total of 20 points, which was the key to victory. Now, apart from Wang Yu and the other two, all the players from Chuanjin Battle Team who might be able to defeat a first-line professional expert had already entered the arena. If they continued to fight, the strength and shortcomings of Motley Crowd Battle Team would be exposed. The second round of the wheel race was randomly selected. In the face of a top-tier professional expert, the members of Chuanjin Battle Team could only choose to resign themselves to fate. Therefore, the last team match was the most important. If their strength and shortcomings were exposed in advance, the third round would be very difficult to fight. Each of the first-line professional experts was more sinister than the other. They would never face difficulties like ordinary people. The third round was Arilang Battle Team's choice of map. If they chose a bigger map and avoided top experts like Wang Yu, they would specifically pick on Chuanjin's shortcomings. Then, they would play hide-and-seek all over the map. Wouldn't Chuanjin Battle Team dig a hole for themselves? They had no choice but to forfeit the last round. As for why they were so arrogant, of course, it was to make themselves look better. At the same time, they could also provoke the opponent's anger, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. No one knew the intention of Chuanjin Battle Team. The curses of the audience in the venue spread to the competition room, and the members of Chuanjin Battle Team in the game could hear it clearly even though they were separated by dimension. After reading the words given by Wuji, Wang Yu turned his head and asked the members of Chuanjin Battle Team with some embarrassment, "Isn't it bad to do this?" Wang Yu was a martial artist. His character was usually as modest, elegant, and upright as the author. Wang Yu always felt a little awkward when he said such arrogant words. "What's wrong with it?" Inlao Air, who was beside him, said, "When I play table tennis, it's the rule to let my opponent win 1 point. How can table tennis and this be the same?" Upon hearing that, Wang Yu was speechless. In table tennis, it was because the strength of the national table tennis team was obviously higher than that of the opponent. They really didn't want to embarrass the opponent too much. Not only would the opponent not feel insulted, but they would also be very grateful. However, the Motley Crowd team was just an esports team that made its debut as an amateur. There were many experts in the world, and it wasn't just the Chinese team that dominated. The two events were not the same concept at all. What's the difference? Wuji raised his eyebrows and asked, "Do you think they can beat you? How is that possible?" Wang Yu was disdainful. Wang Yu was quite confident about his own ability. "That's it," Wuji said. "Anyway, you are invincible like the national table tennis team. It's also polite to let them win 1 point. That makes sense. Wang Yu nodded. After hanging out with the members of Chuanjin battle team for so long, Wang Yu had unconsciously become a little shameless. Chapter 1833. After the 10-minute intermission, the second match continued. Compared to before the match started, it was time to choose the battlefield. Under Wuji's suggestion, Wang Yu chose the ancient forest, F***CK. After seeing Wang Yu's choice, the audience on the stage suddenly became restless. The ancient forest was known as the first of the 4 major maps in the Reborn world. It was so large that no one had fully explored it until now. Even the information provided by the officials was minimal. Ordinary players would get lost in no time. Seeing that the map of the venue had turned into an endless black forest, the audience seemed to have predicted what the shameless Motley Crew was going to do next. As for the Motley Crew's opponent, the Ari Lang squad, they almost cried when they saw the map that Wang Yu chose. He didn't know what he had done to meet such a group of shameless fellows. At the very least, the tactics they used in the first round were barely acceptable, but in the second round, the Motley Crew was clearly trying to display their shamelessness to the extreme. What is this Motley Crew thinking? On the commentator's seat, Shocking Thunder was already sweating profusely. He looked at the changes in the venue in shock, his eyes filled with fear. Could it be that they want to play hide-and-seek here? Who said otherwise? Wind Frost wiped his cold sweat and said sincerely, I've been playing professional for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen such a team. After entering this lousy map, one would not even be able to find themselves if they ran blindly with their eyes closed. If it was used to play hide-and-seek, the result was obvious. The esports industry had been around for a few years. Which team did not fight to the death in the arena? No one had ever heard of such a shameless way of playing. Even the organizer was devastated by the shameless Motley Crew's spirit. The organizers had already experienced the shameless playstyle of the Motley Crew during the domestic pro league. In order to prevent this group of bastards from making the competition so infuriating, the organizers had specially changed some of the rules. However, when the Motley Crew entered the arena, the organizers realized that the changes to the rules did not have much of an impact on this group of scumbags. Instead, it made them even worse. You can change it all you want. In any case, if you can restrain my shamelessness, I'll admit defeat. At this moment, the organizers really wanted to send the Motley Crew out of the arena. However, this group of bastards was so cunning that it made one's hair stand on end. The organizers looked through the rules over and over again, but they still couldn't find a reason to ban them from the competition. So infuriating. The staff of the organizers who were watching the battle at the scene wished they could twist their heads off and kick them around like a ball. The cost of hosting a world-class competition was quite high. The organizers wanted to use this competition to attract the attention of the world. However, the Motley team's playstyle would definitely ruin the competition. Right now, there were already people in the audience who wanted to refund their tickets and leave. If not for the excellent security measures, it was likely that the arena would have already been smashed. The players who were watching the live broadcast in the arena were furious at the Motley team's behavior. They had been watching competitions for so many years, but they had never seen such a boring team. What was even more infuriating was that such a trash team could actually fight their way into the S-Rank World Pro League. What the hell was going on? There must be a conspiracy. Shameless Motley Crew. Shameless. In the competition venue, no one knew who started it, but the entire audience shouted in unison. The various languages interweaved together, and the deafening sound pierced through the sky. Being scolded by so many people, the Motley Crew felt as if they were on cloud nine. They all proudly cupped their hands and said, "Thank you, thank you." Their shameless behavior instantly ignited the entire world. Scolding was scolding, but the competition still had to continue. Under the system's random selection, the players from both teams entered the arena. Just as everyone expected, after the Motley Crew entered the arena, they didn't fight with their opponents at all. Without saying a word, they turned around and ran into the depths of the forest. They ran until they didn't even know where they were. Then, they found a place and squatted there for 30 minutes. These guys from Chuanjin had been hunted down by people all year round. They were battle-hardened. They didn't have any other skills, but their escape methods were more professional than any of the first-rate pro players present. In the boring 2.5 hours of the second match, the only thing that everyone learned was what professional hide-and-seek was. In the future, they would definitely have plenty of ideas to play with their children at home. Under everyone's disdain and abuse, the second match ended with a score of 0-0. Such an insane battle record and playing style would definitely be recorded in the annals of history and become the most shameful event in the history of esports. After the second match, the players from both teams returned to the lounge once again. Although there were no fights during the 2.5 hours of competition, the Chuanjin crew had worked hard and performed well after playing hide-and-seek for so long in the forest. After exiting the gaming cabin, Wang Yu could even feel the murderous look on the staff members' faces. He couldn't help but be on high alert and protect the Chuanjin crew behind him. Wu Ji even specifically reminded everyone, "Be careful behind you when you go to the toilet. Don't get smacked to death by a brick. Otherwise, we won't even be able to find the surveillance footage." In the Arilang team's lounge, after being repeatedly trampled by the motley crew, this group of guys was on the verge of a mental breakdown. It was fine to play chess with a lousy team, but they only managed to tie after playing for so long. This was a huge mental blow to the Arilang crew. After all, everyone was aiming for the World Championship. In the end, they encountered such a despicable team as soon as they stepped out of the door. They had no temper at all. How could they explain themselves? "Everyone buck up." Seeing that his men had lost their fighting spirit, March Wind felt helpless. However, as the captain, of course, he could not be discouraged. Otherwise, there would be no need for them to compete in the following matches. "I can't buck up," June Snow said gloomily. "The third match is a team competition. It's all about tactics. We don't know how we'll be played by those guys." After 2 matches, the miserable Arilang crew had obviously chosen to accept their fate. "Don't worry," March Wind hurriedly comforted her. "Their individual strength is actually very average. Each of us is stronger than them." "What's the use of that?" Everyone curled their lips and said, "With that shameless playstyle of those bastards, do you think we'll be a match for them in terms of tactics? Why we have to play tactics with them?" March Wind smiled and said, "Since tactics are our weakness, we shouldn't use our weakness to attack the enemy's strength. It's a team competition. How can we play without tactics?" Everyone was puzzled. "It's very simple. Just choose a map without tactics," March Wind said lightly. Chapter 1834. The main factor of tactics was the right time, the right place, and the right people. In terms of shamelessness, Team Arilang had already admitted defeat and admitted that they were not as good as the others. However, the right time and the right place were in Team Arilang's hands because Team Arilang was the one who chose the map for the last team match. In fact, in this magical game world, the right time did not have much of an impact. Most of the use of tactics depended on the terrain. The more complicated the terrain, the more tactics would be used. Since they wanted to face their opponents head-on, the smaller the map, the simpler and more brutal it was. "So, what do you plan to choose?" June Snow asked doubtfully. "That's right, and it's the arena." March Wind nodded his head. However, one wrong move led to many wrong moves. March Wind's psychology had been grasped tightly by Wu Ji. Wu Ji knew what the kid was going to shit the moment he lifted his butt. While March Wind confidently confirmed the map choice, Wu Ji had also finished arranging the tactics for the Chuanjin team in Team Motley Bunch Lounge. This isn't appropriate. After listening to Wu Ji's tactics, Evildoer's Run Wild scratched the back of his head and said, "The last match is a team match. We can't control too far away. Don't worry," Wu Ji said with a smile. "Our opponents have suffered enough from the map in the last match. The map for the last match is definitely not a big deal." After the break, both teams entered the game cabins again to continue the last team match. "Choose the map." Under the system's prompt, Marchwind obtained the right to choose the map. Without hesitation, Marchwind chose the same map as the first match, the arena. Wow! Seeing Marchwind's choice, Shocking Thunder exclaimed, "It seems that Team Arilang is going to play hard this round. Choosing the arena, they're obviously going to fight head-on." "Of course," Windfrost added. "If I'm played so badly, I'll choose the same. I don't believe that Team Motley Bunch can play any tricks on such a small map." Team Arilang smashed their eyes. In the audience seats, the audience was also filled with righteous indignation. They could not wait to see Team Motley Bunch being beaten to death on the field. Usually, a match between teams would last more than 2 hours at most. After all, everyone was here to compete in skills, not shamelessness. Of course, they would fight head-on when they met, and the loser would be eliminated. However, Team Motley Bunch not only played all kinds of tricks in the first match, but they also played hide-and-seek for 2.5 hours in the second match. Everyone was full of resentment. Wasting time was a waste of life. Everyone had come to watch the competition despite their busy schedules. How good would it be to watch a movie for 2.5 hours? After staring blankly for 2.5 hours, the anger of the audience was understandable. He couldn't blame everyone for supporting the Arilang battle team. Team Motley, didn't I say it before? Tactics aren't good enough. Upon seeing this, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks of the 9 Provinces battle team gloated. Even a rabbit will bite when it's cornered. This group of guys has forced the Arilang battle team to such a state. Now that the Arilang battle team doesn't give them a chance, let's see how shameless they can be. You can't say that. Hearing this, 5 Lakes 4 Seas waved his hand and said, "You should also know that the Motley crew was able to come all the way here not only because they are shameless, but also because they have experts in their team. Isn't it just the 2 Iron Ox brothers?" The 3 Mountains 5 Peaks said in disdain. "So what if they have 2 experts? Do you think they can lead a bunch of trash?" "Trash? Hee hee." 5 Lakes 4 Seas shook his head helplessly. Don't underestimate this group of people. After being called out for a long time, under the cheers of the audience, all 20 members of the 2 teams were sent to the arena at the same time. As a dual arena, the area of the arena was a standard 10 by 1,000 square meters. If there were only 2 people fighting on the stage, it would definitely not be small. However, if there were 20 people on the stage, it would obviously be very crowded. After the 2 teams pulled into formation, there was only a single charge between the frontliners. On the side of Team Arilang, it was a standard offensive and defensive formation. The melee tanks stood in one row, and the range damage dealers stood in another row. Everyone was holding back their energy and waiting to go. On the other hand, although the Motley crew also had 2 rows, there were only 3 people in the front row. Inlao Air stood in the middle, while Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild stood on either side of Inlao Air. Such a formation looked much stranger in comparison. Of course, the current scene was extremely small. Even if the Motley crew had a tactical arrangement, the people of Team Arilang were not afraid. That was because in terms of mechanics, the people of Team Arilang were far ahead of their opponents. In such a small scene, they could only fight head-on. Under the suppression of strength, any tricks and schemes were useless. Match start. Following the system's command, everyone on both sides pulled into position. "Frontliners, charge!" Marchwind shouted. The melee classes in the front row lowered their heads in unison and rushed towards the people of Team Arilang. At the same time, the damage dealers in the back row also gathered their magic, knocked their arrows, and aimed at the fragile skin in the back row of the Motley crew. Brother Chun blocked the road. However, at this moment, Wuji also gave Chun Xiang an order. Chun Xiang raised the Book of Sealing in his hand, and 10 evil spirits instantly appeared in front of the Team Arilang. At the same time, Yin Laoer lowered his head and lowered his body. Together with the 2 brothers, Wang Yu, they rushed forward. Bang, bang, bang. The frontliners of Team Arilang were blocked by Chun Xiang's evil spirits before they could rush forward for less than a meter. Chun Xiang's summoning skill had been upgraded to the highest level. With the blessing of the Book of Sealing, the HP of these 10 evil spirits was comparable to that of a tank class. This charge naturally blocked all the melee classes of Team Aurilang within a meter of the formation in the back row. Before the players of Team Aurilang could react, Wang Yu and the other two had already arrived behind the evil spirits. At this moment, Yin Lao Air raised his arms. Wang Yu and evildoers Run Wild turned around at the same time and held Yin Lao Air's arms from both sides. Their arms suddenly lifted and exerted force, and they used ferocious tiger strike at the same time. Yin Lao was already in the midst of a high-speed collision, and the two of them threw him away. Whoosh! Like a cannonball, Yin Lao Air flew over the heads of the evil spirits and the melee classes of Team Aurilang. Earth-shattering shield strike. When Yin Lao Air flew to the center of Team Auralang's formation, Yin Lao Air grabbed the big shield with both hands and smashed it down. He used an ultimate skill, Earth-shattering shield strike. Boom! Yin Lao Air instantly descended from the sky and landed in the middle of Team Auralang's formation. As the shield fell, the ground cracked open and gullies spread out in all directions. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.